Chapter 2269 Succession. Countless eyes looked toward Jian'eo and the other powerhouses. According to everything that Futian had said, the original realm would be completely placed under the rule of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, thus ending the rivalry that had been going on in the Nine Realms for many years. Would Jian'eo and his affiliates agree to his proposal? It seemed that they did not have a choice. They came to apologize. Could they not comply? At this point, if they disagreed with Futian's conditions, perhaps only death would await them. Presumably, they would already have been prepared for this when these people were on their way here. Very well then. What you say, we follow. I will give you my full cooperation and hand over my position to Emperor Nan, Jian'eo said. As everyone had anticipated, Jian'eo agreed to Futian's conditions without even the slightest bit of hesitation. He gave up his position as Tianshan Academy's college chief and cooperated with the power handover. Before they came, it was true that they were already prepared. Being able to keep their lives and their factions were already extremely fortunate. They should not be expecting that Futian would conduct his reformation without disrupting them. Likewise, this was all within Jian'eo's expectations. Hence, he complied readily. Seeing Jian'eo's compliance, the corner of the eyes of the other aces twitched. They felt extremely unsettled. However, there was no other choice. Very well, he said. We are willing to cooperate with the Heavenly Mandate Academy. The Hierophant of the Sky-Reaching School, the Martial God Clan Clanlord, and the other powerhouses nodded in agreement to Futian's demands. It was not like they could disagree anyways. Their only option was to lower their heads and submit. Seeing that the strongest figures were complying immediately within the Heavenly Mandate Academy, the powerhouses felt powerful emotions surging in their hearts. Today was bound to be a historic day in the original realm. From today onward, the original realm would be unified, and the era of the Heavenly Mandate Academy would begin. In the past, forces in the Nine Realms governed their respective territories. Who would have thought that there would ever be a day like today? It was even less likely that people would have imagined that, in the end, the force that would unite the Nine Realms would come from the Heavenly Mandate Realm, which had once been the weakest among them all. What's more, the faction was an emerging force. The youngest force was the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Everything was like a dream. However, this was reality. The empty Imperial Palace would not interfere either. Princess Donghuang once said that she would not bother with these disputes and grudges, and it was up to them to decide on their own. Futian's actions were justified. Coupled with the ongoing chaos in the original realm, his purpose of unifying the Nine Realms was to defy undesired variations in the future. Therefore, even the Imperial Palace would have acknowledged everything that he was doing. Since that's the case, you may remain in the Heavenly Mandate Academy while you wait for the final arrangement. Futian opened his mouth and said. The powerful figures nodded without any objection. Since they already agreed to it, and they did not have the power to change anything, acceptance was the only thing they could do. A loser must accept his fate. They were the losers, and losers were unqualified to negotiate terms and conditions. Being alive was already a gift from the opposing party. Futian turned around and looked at Emperor Nan, Lord Taixian, and others. Every one of them was pleased. Lord Taixian was still the college chief of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, but he left everything today for Futian to decide. He was solely responsible for every decision made and every order issued. Now, although Futian had just only broken into high-level Renhuang, he already had the demeanor of a top figure. Besides, in a few years, even without their backing, Futian would still be able to hold the four seas by himself. It was believed that this day would arrive in the near future. My apologies, gentlemen. Your plates may have to remain full for quite some time, Futian said to Emperor Nan and the others. It would naturally take some time and energy to rectify the forces of the Nine Realms. In fact, Emperor Nan was unwilling to involve himself in these affairs. But because of Futian's request, coupled with the complicated situation of the original realm, he could only agree to stand up and take the reins of Tianshan Academy for Futian. Tianshan Academy, located in the Central Emperor Realm, was still quite important to the Nine Realms. It's all right. Just leave it to us, Xiao Dingtian of the Xiao clan and said. He and the Yuanyang clan's clan lord would serve as vice college chiefs of Tianshan Academy and assist Emperor Nan in managing the academy. According to the plan, Tiantian Academy and the Heavenly Mandate Academy would work together to bring up extraordinary cultivators for the original realm. All the cultivators of the original realm had special feelings for the original realm. The same was true for Emperor Nan. Therefore, he proceeded without hesitation. Master Pudu of the Mountain Realm's Tianxian Temple was also aware that Yi Futian was not doing this for his own benefit. After all, with the power Yi Futian possessed right now, he did not need these forces to improve himself. The reason he did so was for the original realm. For that reason, when Yi Futian mentioned it to him, he agreed without delay to assist Yi Futian in whatever he would do next. Excellent. In that case, your duties are settled. In the meantime, we shall commence the construction of the teleportation grand matrices, Yi Futian said. Immediately, the aces began arranging for everything that was about to happen. Futian. At this moment, Lord Taishian suddenly opened his mouth and uttered Yi Futian's name. Yi Futian looked at Lord Taishian only to hear him say, "When the Heavenly Mandate Academy was founded, your cultivation base was relatively low. That was why I served as the first college chief. Now that many years have passed, it's been a while since you became the Heavenly Mandate Academy's core figure, and your cultivation has reached a high level, Runhuang. I think it will not take you too long to catch up with me. I guess I will return the position of the college chief to you right now." His words had all the aces halting their steps as they turned to look at Lord Taishian. He wanted to retire and give Yi Futian the post of college chief. The people below felt a sense of admiration when they heard these words. It was true that Lord Taishian had no selfish intentions when he assumed the post back then. Like what he said, he merely assumed the post in Yi Futian's place. And today, he wanted to return it to him. He did not want anything for himself at all. One must know that right now that the Heavenly Mandate Academy had direct control over the 9 realms. They could even be considered the ruler of the forces of the original realm. The social status of the Heavenly Mandate Academy's college chief was only imaginable. But right at this very moment, Lord Taishian was giving away his position. "I still lack the necessary strength, Lord Taishian. So, I guess I'll have you to continue to shoulder the burden," Yi Futian said. He wanted to turn down his offer. Like Lord Taishian, he did not care about power. For them, that was insignificant. "It's time that I return it to you," Lord Taishian said with a smile, adhering to his own thoughts and wishes. The people around looked over, only to hear Emperor Nan say, "You are the one who single-handedly created what we all see today." Lord Taishian has also been burdened with many worries over the years. It is time that you let him rest. "He's right, Futian. You should accept his offer." The others tried to persuade Yi Futian. Yi Futian looked at the familiar faces and then at the smile on Lord Taishuan's face. Immediately, having understood everyone's intention, he nodded. Lord Taishian turned to the crowd and said, "From today on, Yi Futian will be the college chief of the Heavenly Mandate Academy." Countless eyes looked in that direction. On this very day, the Heavenly Mandate Academy would unify the original realm. Yi Futian took over the position of the Heavenly Mandate Academy's college chief on this very day. In the original realm, a thorough cleanup operation had begun. With the Heavenly Mandate Academy as the center, its allies began to take over major forces within the 9 realms. They disrupted these top forces by completely splitting them apart. They controlled their young progenies by sending them to Tiantian Academy for cultivation. As for Jianao and the others, they were also split apart by Yi Futian, being relocated to different places. For example, Jianao would be neutralized among the cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace. In this manner, even if he had truly domineering power in the original realm, he couldn't make any waves without Ren Huangqian destroying and crushing him easily. If he were anything but obedient, he would pay for it with his life. Other top cultivators were in the same predicament and were under control. They had made several moves against Yi Futian in the past, so it was impossible to allow them absolute freedom. It was already a favor to them to allow them to surrender their powers and submit themselves under his control. The space teleportation grand matrix had begun to be built one after the other. The land of the 9 realms formed a pattern with the Heavenly Mandate Academy at the center and radiated outward. As soon as movement was detected, It could gather its allies with the fastest speed. Adding Heavenly Mandate Academy and Ziwei Imperial Palace into the mix, cultivators from all sides were completely connected. For the first time in more than 300 years, the original realm had formed such a pervasive unification, ending nearly 400 years of division. Regarding the changes that took place in the 9 realms, these external forces had made a note to themselves, and most of them had not left the original realm. Instead, they stayed on quietly, observing these changes, and their hearts were greatly disturbed. Previously, neither the forces from the Divine Prefecture, the Dark World, nor the empty Divine Realm had paid much attention to the forces within the original realm. In their eyes, they were but targets to be slaughtered at will. Before, many forces had participated in the campaign against Heavenly Mandate Academy, and the Holy Land of Taichu had paid a heavy price, the death of Swordmaster of Taichu himself. But now, everything was different. The forces in the original realm had been unified. Coupled with the power from Ziwei Segmentum, it was not so easy to be taken down any one force in the original realm, be it the Divine Prefecture or the Dark World. There were not many forces that would provoke the Heavenly Mandate Academy in its current state unless they conspired together. This situation did not bode well for forces from the outside. Their desire to grab more resources from the original realm seemed an impossible endeavor. The Solar Divine Palace of Solar Realm was the only force that did not submit besides the realms that had been destroyed. Once upon a time, the Solar Divine Palace had unified the Solar Realm, and all the forces in the entire realm obeyed the orders given by Solar Divine Palace. In addition, they had the support of Sun God Mountain, a supreme power in the upper worlds. Nevertheless, even at a time like this, they did not submit. After all, Sun God Mountain was a supreme power in the upper worlds. According to legend, they were descendants of the Sun God and had all the rights to be proud as they were qualified to do so. In the upper worlds, Sun God Mountain was one of the top principalities. At this time, inside Solar Divine Palace, the blazing Solar Divine Fire shrouded the palace. The currents of flames flowed about in extreme brilliance. Inside the Divine Palace, in front of the solar pattern, a majestic figure stood there, surveying the crowd below. It was the top figure from the Sun God Mountain who had fought with Futian that day, the man who had passed the first divine tribulation. However, he was almost killed by Futian's shocking sword while he had control over the body of Shunjia, the great emperor. "What's the situation outside?" asked the man of might power from Sun God Mountain. "Heavenly Mandate Academy has taken control of the top forces from all realms," a strong man responded. "Should we evacuate?" All realms had gone to pledge their allegiance to Heavenly Mandate Academy, but the Solar Divine Palace had not. However, Solar Divine Palace had participated in several assault operations in the past. The fact that they did not apologize and pledge fealty was not something that Futian would easily overlook. That top cultivator from Sun God Mountain pondered for a moment. Were they doomed to fail this time? Now, with the power gathered by the Heavenly Mandate Academy, unless it were the Divine Mountain Lord himself who came to the lower worlds, they would probably be unable to stop its momentum. This meant that they would have to abandon the solar realm. The Divine Mountain Lord was, at the moment, cultivating in retreat. He had not left the mountain for many years. Therefore, he couldn't come to the lower worlds. This time he brought a group of cultivators to the original realm on a mission. However, were they going to have to give up the solar realm after all that? He was somewhat reluctant. Now, the body of Shunjia, the great emperor, had been taken away by that one from Four Corner Village. But, perhaps, he still had a fighting chance. At this moment, he seemed to have sensed something. He raised his head and looked into the distance. He immediately felt a horrible aura descending. As if coming from outside the firmament, these auras were greatly terrifying, and each one was incredibly strong. Soon, all the cultivators from Solar Divine Palace felt an oppressive force. They knew that trouble was afoot. Futian, who had cleaned up all the principalities in the original realm, was unlikely to let them off the hook. Now, it seemed that the time of reckoning was upon them. In addition, in different areas high above the sky were many top forces from the Divine Prefecture. They were here, looking in the direction of the Solar Divine Palace below. As soon as they detected movement from the Heavenly Mandate Realm, They had come, knowing that an impending battle was bound to erupt. The Heavenly Mandate Academy would not let Solar Divine Palace off the hook. Soon, above the sky, a group of cultivators appeared. There weren't many of them, but each one of them was like a god, standing high above the void, looking down at Solar Divine Palace below. The sight vaguely reminded them of an event once upon a time, when all the major forces were surrounding and looking down upon the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Among them was the supreme cultivator of Ziwei the Great, Renhuang Chun, holding a scepter, standing high above the sky. Radiant starlight continued to fall. Yi Futian was also there, standing next to Renhuang Qian, with other powerful cultivators, such as the Millet Emperor, next to them. Thus, everyone in attendance was a powerful major existence. Suddenly, the vast Solar Divine Palace was being oppressed below, and everyone could feel the suffocating pressure. The expressions of many cultivators in the Divine Palace changed. They did not understand why that figure with mighty power from Sun God Mountain was not retreating. Now, it seemed too late. Heavenly Mandate Academy was here to exact its revenge. Boom. Suddenly, Solar Divine Palace was submerged by a terrifying divine fire. Downward from the Divine Palace, there seemed to be a passage leading to the center of the earth, like a powerful flaming divine matrix had been urged at the moment. Instantly, the divine flames radiated out into a radius of thousands of miles, and the ground began to burn. The area where the Solar Divine Palace was now seemed to have been turned into a terrifying blazing furnace. For a moment, the cultivators from Solar Divine Palace couldn't bear this tremendous power. No! Some people's faces revealed a look of shock and disbelief as their bodies turned into nothingness little by little. Many let out miserable screams. Inside, many top cultivators from Solar Divine Palace looked at that man with great capabilities, shock written all over their faces. It turned out that he could not care less about whether those from the Solar Divine Palace lived or died. Chapter 2271, Divine Power Underground. The entire Solar Divine Palace turned into a terrifying divine sun furnace and continued to spread into the far distance. With the Solar Divine Palace as the center, the entire vast expanse of land was on fire, and the earth was about to be destroyed by the intense heat. Countless people levitated into the air, heading higher into the sky, trying to escape that terrible vision of the flame. However, because the Solar Divine Palace was in the center, few could escape, and many perished under the terrible flame of the way, killed off simply by being burnt away. Didn't even spare their own people. In the void, Yi Futian and the others looked down into the lower sky. That powerful existence, who had passed through the divine tribulation of the Great Path, was urging the divine flame in the middle of the earth. A monstrous flaming aura soared, and he seemed to have turned into a god of flames surrounded by the divine light of the flames, with no one who could get close to him. Anyone who approached him was in danger of being burned alive. How cruel! Everyone secretly marveled. This supremely powerful figure from the upper worlds, as expected, did not care much for the cultivators from the Solar Divine Palace. To raise the earthly divine fire, he didn't hesitate to spend the lives of those from Solar Divine Palace. Watch out! Renhuang Chun reminded Yi Futian. This cultivator from Sun God Mountain couldn't give up the earthly fire of the solar realm, which was why he did not leave. Moreover, he was confident enough that the cultivators from Heaven Mandate Academy couldn't trip him up. After all, without the body of Shunjia the Great Emperor, there were not many who could compete with him. Feeling the aura from others at this moment, Renhuang Chen also sensed a vague threat. Although Yi Futian had broken into the realm of Upper Renhuang, if he suffered an attack by someone at this level, he would undoubtedly die from it. So, he had to rely on Yi Futian to be extra careful. Boom! A horrific aura flooded the space, and the infinite divine fire of the Great Path directly swallowed up the void. Thousands of miles of space all turned into a world ruled by flames, as if it was the realm that belonged to the divine fire. That cultivator from Sun God Mountain seemed to transform into a veritable sun god, with the divine wheel of the sun behind his back. The divine light shot out toward Yi Futian and the others in the void with frightening destructive power. Renhuang Chun extended the scepter in his hand. Suddenly, a field of stars appeared around the cultivators. They were surrounded by starry divine light and a world of starry skies. It was as the divine light of the sun directly fell upon these stars until the terrifying divine fire seemed to engulf them all. Slowly, the surface of the stars began to burn little by little, causing the stars to ignite. What was happening in this area was too terrifying to behold. Many cultivators from the Solar Divine Palace had a desperate look on their faces. Fighting here meant that they would all die. There would be no survivors. That powerful man from the upper worlds had intended for all of them to be buried here. No wonder some cultivators from Sun God Mountain had already left before this. It turned out that he already had a plan, and he did not even take the Solar Divine Palace in the lower worlds into consideration at all. To him, everyone here was as insignificant as an ant. As such, totally without any value. The only thing that really mattered was the solar realm itself. This caused the cultivators from Solar Divine Palace to feel a deep sense of sorrow. It was ludicrous that they thought the cultivator from Sun God Mountain would protect them. They never expected that the other had never even considered their safety, so how could he care if they lived or died? Under the power of the divine fire of the sun, the stars were actually showing signs of melting. Renhuang-Chen looked down into the sky below and said, "He is borrowing the power of the underground." In the land of the Nine Realms, the Shadow Divine Stone was once found inside the Shadow Realm. It could be the same with the Solar Realm. There might be divine items existing, thus accounting for the birth of the Solar Realm. The cultivator from Sun God Mountain came to the lower worlds and must have already begun to excavate the divine items inside the Solar Realm. "It's not so strange that he would be able to draw on the power of it," said Futian. Renhuang-Chen nodded gently. He came from the Ziwei segmentum, and he was not so familiar with everything that went on in the original realm. However, he had heard that Ziwei segmentum was previously enclosed inside a massive rock in the Ziwei realm. The cultivator from Sun God Mountain extended both of his hands, and the body akin to the sun god was terrifying beyond words. The divine fire that rushed out from the heart of the earth gathered together and turned into a terrifying sun god sword. But more than that, in the area above him, the currents of Great Path circulated as if containing the source power of the Great Path and had also converged and formed into many sun god swords. In an instant, countless sun god swords fell all at once, aiming at the ground surrounded by the starry sky in front of them. Bang, bang. The terrifying attacks landed as stars, one after another, collapsed and shattered, broken under the attacks of the sun god sword. The terrifying attacks continued to move forward, killing all the nearby cultivators. At the same time, the divine fire in this area came down to burn this boundless space. Renhuang-Chen took a step forward, and a terrifying divine glory came out from his body. On him, wisps of starlight shot out as well, and turned into a frightening starlight screen to block the intrusion of the divine fire. At the same time, terrifying and mighty power was flowing within the scepter. As he pointed the scepter forward, many starry divine swords suddenly appeared and smashed toward the sun god sword before colliding. However, Renhuang-Chen's attack was surprisingly at a slight disadvantage. His starry divine sword was penetrated by the sun god sword, and the light screen seemed to be on the verge of being pulverized. "We have to seal the power from the underground," Futian said as he swept his eyes to the area below. It seemed that this man from Sun God Mountain could leverage the divine power underground to exert supreme strength. No wonder he was reluctant to leave. It seemed that he did not excavate any divine items from the solar realm, but he could borrow some of its power. "I'll go." The Millet Emperor spoke up, and as his voice fell, he was already on his way towards the sky below with the watchtower on his back. At the same time, he said to Renhuang-Chen, "You know what to do, so please." Renhuang-Chen understood what he meant by that. It was for him to slow down the opponent so that he could seal the divine power that surged underground. Boom! An even more terrifying force erupted from Renhuang-Chen. It was as if he had turned into a starry world all of his own. Countless starlight flowed as he continued moving forward with a scepter in hand. Suddenly, those sun god swords continued to shatter and collapse as an incredible power emerged from his body, directly slamming toward the opponent at close range. As the cultivators from Sun God Mountain saw the oncoming slaughter, a sacred flame shot out from his eyes, and that sun-godlike body continued forward. His palm was outstretched as if it had turned into a divine sun furnace, intending to incinerate Renhuang Chun. The scepter in Renhuang Chin's hand hit the palm, which was like a solar forge. A terrifying force swept through the land, as if to shatter the earth as well as heaven. However, the space remained stable with no signs of damage, nor did any dark cracks appear. This was because the entire space had been controlled by the two of them and was shrouded by their way. At this moment, the Millet Emperor carried Wangshan Watchtower toward the ground below. A heavenly might descended, and there was a terrifying divine power surging within the watchtower, flowing towards the ground. Chapter 2272, Ruination. An area formed by the Great Path had appeared around the Millet Emperor. It was as if an ancient divine gate from the past was now being summoned, surging toward the ground below. The watchtower continued to expand until a divine gate capable of suppressing the world emerged from it. It crashed through the ground and revealed itself to be the gate of the world, capable of suppressing all the forces in the world. The divine fire that gushed from beneath the ground could not melt away the gate of the world, and the world beneath the ground was cut off. The cultivator from Sun God Mountain instantly began to wilt. Unable to leverage the power from under the ground, his momentum was clearly not as strong as before. The situation in which Renhuang Chun was being suppressed was rapidly reversing. Boom! A terrifying divine power rocked the godlike body as it burst out, smashing the solar divine palace inside the divine flames. Those eyes glanced at the Millet Emperor in the sky below, knowing full well that it was him who suppressed the power underneath the ground. Now, his power was blocked, and he was being repelled. Unsurprisingly, it wasn't easy to contend with the others just on the strength of a single person. It seemed that it was an impossible task, after all. The terrible rumbling sound came out, and the space around him had been transformed into a starry sky world. It was as if he was in the absolute domain of the starry Great Path. The starry sky world was full of shining bright stars that sprinkled down their radiant divine light. The starlight was like countless lines that connected these stars, forming a horrific starry sky matrix. Renhuang Chun floated in the air, as if to become one with the starry sky. It seemed as if he was the master of this starry sky world. He held the scepter in his hand as his blue robe fluttered in the wind. There was an unfathomable aura coming from him. It was incomparably sacred. The cultivator from Sun God Mountain knew very well that the others wanted to keep him here to finish him. In another direction, the Millet Emperor was walking this way, still carrying Wangshan Watchtower on his back. It was difficult for him to fight against the man who had borrowed the power from the underground. But now, with that source of power shut off, he who carried the watchtower was absolutely qualified to participate in the battle. Not to mention that they had Renhuang Chun on their side. The cultivator from Sun God Mountain looked at the two, knowing that they wanted nothing more than to detain him here permanently, in this land of the original realm, and kill him once and for all. In the other direction below, where Futian and the others were, the cultivators from Solar Divine Palace met their miserable end. Many were killed by that powerful cultivator from Sun God Mountain. The divine fire he summoned had burned many people to death. The layout of the field had prevented them from escaping. Everyone who was still alive was at the Renhuang level. However, at this moment, there was nothing but desperation and hopelessness in their hearts. Solar Divine Palace is willing to submit to Heavenly Mandate Academy, a voice from below said. It came from a cultivator of the Solar Divine Palace. But Futian did nothing except glance indifferently toward the sky below, thinking, now they are willing to submit. He had given them a chance before, but the Solar Divine Palace did not take it. Only when they were in dire strait, as they were now, did they think of surrendering. But, unfortunately, they had overestimated his generosity. The Heavenly Mandate Academy is not recruiting right now, Futian replied indifferently, and the cultivator in the sky below paled instantly as a feeling of desperation crept up on him. Boom. Next to Futian, many top figures started to move downward as a collective horrific aura burst out from them, suppressing the cultivators from the Solar Divine Palace. There was extremely tyrannical murderous intent upon all of them. At this moment, The solar divine palace understood that the end was upon them. They were finished. The battle afterward was one-sided. Without any doubts, every cultivator from Solar Divine Palace was slaughtered, one after another. Under such absolute and domineering power, there was no way for them to fight back. Thus, on this day, this most powerful principality in the solar realm had been wiped out. The truth was that the Solar Divine Palace had the same chance as the Shin clan and the Golden Divine Nation to save themselves. At the very least, they wouldn't have ended up like this, but they had been used and sacrificed by their own people. On another battlefield, the stars that surrounded the man from Sun God Mountain suddenly shot out many rays of starry divine lights, and these divine lights now turned into starry divine swords, crossing heavens and earth, trying to destroy this side of the space. It had shut off all the escape routes, leaving nowhere to go. Once anybody was hit by any one of these swords, there would be nothing left. These attacks came in an instant, and when that cultivator from Sun God Mountain saw this, that godlike body started to burn. It was as if he was transformed into a blazing sun. Then, with his body as the center, a terrifying solar storm manifested to destroy everything. The divine glory of the sun spilled out, and the space was burning. When those destructive starry divine swords came in front of him, they entered into an absolutely powerful field. Those swords took on the color of fire and began to melt. By the time they got to him, they had already melted into nothingness. An existence that had been through the divine tribulation of the great path was frightening enough, for it had already come infinitely closer to the origin of the way. Nevertheless, it would not be so easy to kill him. At this time, the large starry matrix that surrounded them gathered into one point, and that was where Ren Huang-Chen appeared. He extended the scepter in his hand, and a terrible rumbling sound was heard. Suddenly, starlight seemed to fall from somewhere outside the firmament. It was as if they were summoned here to bestow the divine glory. At this moment, the endless and vast area of the solar realm turned into a starry sky world. The light of hundreds of millions of stars gathered, all flowing in the direction of Ren Huang-Chen, and converged upon the scepter he held. They seemed to draw on the power of the nine heavens, summoning the power of the starry great path from somewhere outside the firmament. Even as mighty as the man who came from Sun God Mountain was, he, too, felt a strong sense of threat at this time. His eyes, burning with the divine fire of the sun, stared at the figure in the void. They held a sense of great apprehension. He wanted to get away from here. Boom! Light of the divine fire rushed straight into the sky, wanting to pierce the starry sky world and leave this area. Suddenly, the starry sky above the firmament seemed to be set ablaze, bathing in the divine fire. However, Ren Huang-Chen stood high above the sky. He didn't seem to be aware of it, but he continued summoning that force. If he wanted to finish off his opponent here, he must mobilize extraordinary power to unleash the fatal attack. The Millet Emperor had wanted to make a move, but was shocked by the power summoned by Ren Huang-Chen at this time. This power was nothing close to anything he could have produced, not even with the help of Wangshan Watchtower. After all, Ren Huang-Chen himself, with his scepter in hand, was already in existence who had experienced the divine tribulations. The scepter was a divine item passed down by the great emperor once upon a time, and only the palace lord of Ziwei Imperial Palace may possess and control it. However, Futian didn't claim it for himself, but handed it over to Ren Huang-Chen instead. Therefore, Ren Huang-Chen was quite partial to Futian since their trust seemed to be mutual. Outside the firmament, brilliant starlight descended and gathered on the scepter. As Ren Huang-Chen stretched out his hand, the scepter suddenly flew out of his hand and began to float in the air. The shape of the scepter seemed to change as if it was transformed by all the stars in the sky until, finally, a sword emerged. In the vast starry sky world, boundless starlight converged on the sword and transformed it into a heavenly divine sword. As it was transformed by stars in the heavens, it was crushing this corner of the sky. Sword and tint flowed down one by one, and everything was suppressed in the world below. Finally, the cultivator from Sun God Mountain fixed his attention on the sword and felt the threat of death approaching. He looked at Ren Huang-Chen and said, "If I perish here today, All the cultivators from Sun God Mountain will come to the lower worlds to seek justice. Is this something the Heavenly Mandate Academy wants? It seems that you had forgotten the last battle quickly. Renhuang Chen glanced at the man indifferently and continued. Since it was you who started this war, it's only fitting that you die here, as you have proven you are not up to the task. So let's end it now. When his voice fell, Renhuang Chen pointed his finger down, and the starry divine sword penetrated heaven and earth as a loud rumbling sound was heard. The world was pierced through by the star divine sword as it came down from the firmament. Boom! That supreme existence from Sun God Mountain fought hard to resist, unleashing the Sun God sword to smash and shatter everything without discrimination. The divine sun furnace attempted to melt the sword, but it was useless. This heavenly star divine sword slammed down, led by the power of the heavens and the stars, summoning powers outside of this world to gather upon this one sword. The sword struck, and the body of that cultivator from Sun God Mountain was penetrated. But then, his body disintegrated little by little until it turned into an illusion. Finally, a face was revealed in that soon-to-disappeared illusion, and it was full of reluctance and disbelief. How could he meet his end on a battlefield in the lower worlds? Bits of the flaming divine light dissipated, and a cultivator of supreme existence, someone who had survived the first divine tribulation of the Great Path, had been killed on this spot. The starry sky world disappeared as well, with many observing the battlefield from different locations in the distance. The witnesses trembled in their hearts and were shocked beyond belief. They did not expect Renhuang Chun from the Ziwei segmentum would possess such terrifying strength. The scepter in his hand had killed an existence of the same level from Sun God Mountain, and he didn't even allow the man a chance to escape. In this battle, the entire Solar Divine Palace was wiped out, and everyone from there was slaughtered. From this moment forward, the Solar Realm would be controlled in the hands of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. The Heavenly Mandate Academy was systematically gaining control over all of the original realm. Futian witnessed everything that occurred. He walked up and said to Renhuang Chun, "Thank you, Elder. It was what I'm supposed to do. If it weren't for the Millet Emperor, who had suppressed the underground power, I probably wouldn't have been able to kill him. Most likely, I would have even been at a disadvantage. I still don't know what is underneath this ground." Renhuang Chen looked below as the Millet Emperor extended his palm toward the sky below. Instantly, rumbling sounds were heard, and the power that suppressed the underground disappeared. Suddenly, everyone perceived a majestic force surging out from the ground underneath. Hot airflow diffused towards the ground above. Very quickly, the temperature of the air became scorching hot, and even the ground appeared red-hot. It was as if it had been branded by a hot iron. It has been many years since Solar Divine Palace has started the process, and then there was that cultivator from Sun God Mountain who came here from the lower worlds. All this meant that they probably have already started channeling the power from the Earth Center, just short of finding a method to completely control or take it away. So this explains why that cultivator from Sun God Mountain was so reluctant to leave. He still wanted to use it to fight, Futian reasoned in his heart. Especially when he felt that hot air current, he sensed that the man had already achieved some kind of communication with the power in the heart of the earth. Otherwise, there was no way he could have used it to fight. Everyone around him nodded in agreement. If the cultivator from Sun God Mountain could use the power of the Earth's center to fight before, it stood to reason that a channel already existed, just that there was no way to master it completely. Chapter 2273, Geo-Center Storm. The group strode down. It was not only Futian's group. Many practitioners in the sky also came down. The cultivators of every faction wanted to see what was hidden inside the center of the solar realm. The formation of every one of the 9 supreme imperial realms seemed to contain a unique factor. The Shadow Realm had a Shadow Divine item. So, what about the Solar Realm? Beneath the destroyed Solar Divine Palace, a large gap had appeared. It was the spot where the mighty figure from the Sun God Mountain stood earlier. Scorching heat flowed out of the gap as if lava was spewing out from it. Did we already reach the surface layer? The cultivators' hearts fluctuated. The power contained within the center affected the entire solar realm. However, it should not have been as far-fetched as the current moment. Otherwise, the solar realm would have long been turned into a world of fire. How could any life form survive? This should be caused by the solar divine palace, mumbled someone. The others nodded slightly. They also had the same guess in their minds. Otherwise, it would not have become like this. Rumble. Then, the surface was burned into nothingness. The ground was melted, and the location of the solar divine palace was completely transformed into a world of fire. Figures stood in the air one after another. If they were to look down from above, they would be able to notice that a deep pit of flames had appeared within that vast area. There's a matrix. Divine light glowed from everyone's eyes. They looked down at the flames and could only see a powerful matrix deep inside the pit. The matrix looked like it had transformed into an image of the sun. Surrounding it was a solar storm that whirled continuously. The storm swirled and twisted, causing the power underneath to be devoured into the image of the sun incessantly. An extremely shocking aura burst from the image of the sun. At that moment, everyone finally understood why the divine palace was directly burned to the ground and why the practitioners within the divine palace were burned to death. Such a powerful matrix. If it were to explode completely, even the powerful figures, not to mention the cultivators of the solar divine palace, would have to retreat for a bit, and they would not dare to touch it. Before, the cultivator from Sun God Mountain borrowed this power to extract the forces from underground to make the power flow into his body and erupt amazing strength. Don't get close. This matrix has been running for a long time. It has been devouring the divine powers surging from below. If you get too close, I'm afraid you might be burned to a crisp, instructed Renhuang in a low voice. He could clearly sense just the magnitude of the power within. If anyone were to go underground carelessly and enter the area covered by the matrix, they would likely be burned to ash. The person would not even know what killed him. Everyone stopped in their tracks. Odd expressions hung on their faces. What the current situation meant was that it was going to be difficult to enter from there. We need to destroy the matrix first. Let the divine power of the sun disperse, said a cultivator from one of the factions present. The others nodded. They had also realized this. Then, let's work together and destroy it first, suggested someone. Many people nodded in agreement. Futian glanced below and said to Renhuang, "It looks like I have to trouble Elder again." Back in the day, he was able to get his hands on the power of Yin. Now, his plane level was no longer comparable to back then. If he were to descend, he was confident that he was the person most likely to obtain the Solar Realm Divine item. Okay. Renhuang understood Futian's meaning. He nodded. Then, he concentrated his strength and prepared to destroy the matrix himself. While the matrix was strong, without someone controlling it, the group's powerful attacks would naturally destroy it. As Futian and the others moved aside, they could see the other cultivators converging their power of the Great Path, which later transformed into multiple frightening attacks that flew directly into the flame below. The attacks directly landed within the matrix. In an instant, the solar matrix was destroyed and disintegrated. A destructive force raged and spewed outwards. Flames spread around the area, and in an instant, everything within a radius of tens of thousands of miles had turned into scorched earth. Only after the frightening power of flame dispersed from the direction of the solar divine palace did the cultivators start walking downwards again. It seemed as if a passage towards the center had been opened there. After the matrix was destroyed, the scorching air on the surface had dispersed. However, the deeper they went, the more intense the scorching aura became. Most of those who had entered were the best of the best. They were heavyweight class existences. Before long, they had gone deep underground. As they went deeper, they quickly noticed that rocks could no longer be found around them. It had become a world of flames. It seemed like nothing else could exist in this environment. Further, they continued to venture deeper. Multiple rivers of flame seemed to flow all around this world of flame. The cultivators moved past and across them. Some of the younger Renhuangs had come along. For these Renhuangs, the further they went, the harder it became. The power of the great path of defense on their bodies was on the verge of collapsing as they could no longer withstand further assault from the path of fire. Suddenly, an excruciating wail filled the air. Then, a gust of scorching air came into contact with a person, and the person directly burst into flames. His power of the Great Path had been burnt out. What's going on? Everyone looked over to where the sound came from and saw a gust of scorching air that seemed different. The expressions on the faces of some of the more powerful cultivators changed after they sensed the power contained within. "Stop going down," said a powerful figure to the younger Renhuangs who had followed them there. "That gust of scorching air seems different. We might be getting close to the central zone," said Renhuang Chan to Futian. Starry light surrounded his body as he tried to keep Futian protected inside. "No need. I can sense it," said Futian. Renhuang Chen glanced at him and nodded. Since Futian said that, it most likely meant that he was confident. The group continued to move downward. Futian's expression also became slightly solemn. It felt similar to the experience he had last time in the Shadow Realm. As they ventured deeper, the number of gusts of scorching air similar to the earlier one had increased. Even the heavyweight level existences had begun to act more cautiously. Futian only knew that he could hardly walk anymore. The strength of the flame in this area had reached a level that he could almost no longer withstand. Then, at that moment, a whirling storm suddenly appeared in front of them. Inside the storm were countless gusts of those earlier scorching air. In an instant, the cultivators stopped moving and stared at the storm. It looked like a sun was right in front of them, and the storm was like a storm generated by the sun. The expressions on many of the top cultivators' faces changed. How were they going to enter? If they were to step into the storm, they were afraid that it would be too dangerous. Even heavyweight level figures could not guarantee that they would be able to enter and get out alive. Renhuang Chun also stared at the scene before him. It was no wonder the cultivators from Sun God Mountain failed to obtain the divine item from the center of the solar realm. Among the cultivators who came to the Earth's center, many extraordinary figures cultivated the flaming Great Path. They stood before the storm and perceived the power inside, trembled before such aura. It was the source of the flaming Great Path. Every strand of flowing current contained divine prowess. Dared they explore? Many people thought of the same thing, but they quickly dismissed it. They realized that it was almost impossible to accomplish the task. After all, the Solar Divine Palace had been here for years, and even the cultivator that came to the lower worlds from Sun God Mountain was unable to get to the divine item inside, despite having opened up this channel. If the cultivator from Sun God Mountain couldn't do it, how could they? Of course, divine item aside, could they enter and use its power to cultivate just like that cultivator from the Solar Divine Palace? While the cultivators were considering the consequences of going inside, some were already on the move. A major figurehead, bathed in the divine light of flames, walked directly into the storm. He was instantly obscured by the moving storm, but his vague outline could still be seen in the flaming storm. He was moving towards the core, the eye of the storm. This caused some uneasiness in other cultivators. Did they even want to try? There might be danger in the storm. Among those from the Heavenly Mandate Academy, everyone's eyes were on Futian. Renhuang Chen asked, "Are you going in?" Futian nodded. "It's too dangerous," said Renhuang Chen. "This storm is powerful. The strength of the flaming Great Path on the outer rim may equal the Great Path strength of some of these top cultivators. If we insist on getting deeper inside the core, even I may not survive it. This must be the reason why that cultivator from Solar Divine Palace failed." Among the 9 supreme regions of the original realm, there are 2 realms that complemented each other, the Shadow Realm and Solar Realm. These 2 realms are somewhat similar in nature. "I have entered the core area of the Shadow Realm before," Futian said to Renhuang Chan. Traces of currents flowed about him, producing a chilling sensation. When Renhuang Chan perceived this aura, his eyes sharpened a bit as he glanced at Futian. It seemed that Futian had a great many opportunities before he received the inheritance of Ziwei the Great. If so, he might be overthinking the whole thing, as Futian himself should know his own limits much better. Since the Palace Lord has had a similar experience before, I won't say anything more. However, please be careful. After all, there are still some risks. Allow me to go in with you. If there is an emergency, I can be of assistance, said Renhuang Chen. Sure. Futian nodded and did not reject Renhuang Chen's thoughtfulness. He then walked forward, with Renhuang Chan and others in tow. Renhuang Chan, especially, was sticking to him closely. Before they had entered into the storm, Renhuang Chan vaguely detected an unusual current flowing above the surface of Futian's body. This current spread towards the surroundings and seemed to turn into invisible branches and leaves of a tree. When these currents met with the invading flaming currents, they actually swallowed them up. This made Renhuang Chan feel even more unsettled. He looked at the white-haired man in front of him and felt that Futian was more unfathomable than ever before. Boom! A violent aura of the Great Path erupted from Futian's body. As his body was a body of the way, the sound of the Great Path roared from it. The divine light hovered on the surface of his body as he walked into the storm, just like that. Amazingly, even at his realm, he was not burned up by that fervently fiery flaming power of the Great Path. With him as the center, a strange phenomenon was taking place. Flames that flowed freely inside the storm now turned into a cyclone surrounding him. Gradually, it infiltrated into his body little by little until it was completely swallowed by his body. At this moment, Renhuang Chan realized that Futian had secrets that no one knew. Perhaps, the will of Ziwei the Great chose him for a reason, and it had something to do with this. Some people who had entered chose to stop here, quietly perceiving the power of the Great Path, or trying to use it to cultivate. Occasionally, some of them would continue moving forward tentatively to see where their limits might allow them to proceed. Others were moving forward persistently as well, wanting to enter deeper into the area. Futian and Renhuang Chan kept moving. In this terrifying storm, the deeper they got, the darker the color of the flames. In the most inner area of the core, the color was red as blood, shocking to behold, and all the flame's energy seemed to diffuse out from that central region. As they continued moving, Futian gradually slowed down as well, and more cultivators had stopped, find it difficult to move forward. They had entered an area even deeper, where it was difficult for the strongest among them to move any further. Only those who had passed the test of the Great Path Divine Tribulation dared to venture deeper. Renhuang Chan, who was following Futian, felt it as well. If he went any deeper, perhaps he, too, would not be able to continue walking. Faint traces of imperial glory hovered around Futian and upon that body of a mortal Great Path. There was also the terrifying divine light of flames that flowed about him, and his body seemed gradually being eaten away by the power of the flames. He paused briefly. Although his realm was not as strong as he was now, he remembered when he was frozen and almost lost his life in the Shadow Realm. At present, his realm had much improved, but the power of Sun God Fire was definitely no less menacing than the power of Shadow. If he couldn't bear it, the result would not be just being frozen, but being burned to cinders with no hope of ever returning. There were some unusual movements in his life palace, and the ancient tree of the world kept swaying, moving toward his limbs and muscles, protecting his indestructible physical body in case of unforeseeable circumstances. At the same time, those ancient branches turned into an invisible power that spread towards the surrounding area as the ancient tree of the world stirred again in his life palace. At this time, Futian's body seemed to have been transformed into a sacred tree. He lifted his foot and continued forward. Renhuang Chan looked at him, hesitated for a moment, then followed him forward, continuing to venture deeper into an area even closer to the core. At this time, Futian's body acted like a monster. Under the gaze of Renhuang Chan, he was madly devouring the flaming currents. As they poured into his body, they seemed to be swallowed into a bottomless pit. What kind of ability is this? Renhuang Chan exclaimed secretly after witnessing this spectacular sight. It seemed that his worries were unwarranted. Inside this place, he might not be stronger than Futian after all. At the moment, he was already experiencing a strong pressure, and the starry defense had begun to show signs of weakness. If he went any further, he might not be able to make it. Palace Lord, Renhuang Chan called out when he thought about this, and Futian turned his head to look at him. He heard Renhuang Chan say, "I can only walk to this point." Futian merely nodded, but continued to walk deeper to the core inside. When he saw this, Renhuang Chan didn't know what else to say. Not only him, but the other top figures behind them sharpened their eyes as well. How was Futian able to achieve this? It didn't take long before Futian entered into the area around the core. The crimson flames were dark and terrifying. It was as if they could swallow people up in an instant. Under the shower of the divine light, everything in this area was on the verge of being burned up, except for the place where Futian was standing, in a small area of vacuum. Futian saw the eye of the storm ahead. It looked like a crystal. One glance would make the beholder's eyes sting. Is this the solar divine stone? Futian marveled secretly. This power was not any lesser than the original power of Een. The ultimate solar fire was pure to the extreme. Chapter 2275. Consumed. Futian was continuing to advance. Outside the storm, many people could faintly make out his silhouette. Their hearts trembled violently as they wondered, was this fellow crazy? Why would he continue to advance under such circumstances? Even the giant-level figures did not dare approach the divine fire. Could it be that Futian wanted to reach the eye of the storm? Even cultivators who had survived the divine tribulations of the Great Path did not dare approach the eye of the storm. Futian sure had some guts to try to approach it. Nervously, the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy stared at the blurry silhouette. Under their attentive gazes, Futian actually successfully made his way towards the region where the eye of the storm was. As he advanced step by step, it seemed he would reach the divine fire. The area where the divine fire blazed was the core of the entire solar realm. It contained terrifying power that was beyond anyone's imagination. However, Futian had actually succeeded in approaching it. He had just become a high-level Runhuang not long ago. Was he not concerned that he would be incinerated by the divine fire? At the moment, intense rumbling sounds could be heard from Futian's body. The divine light of the great path circled around him as the imperial glory shone. Streaks of the divine halo of the ancient tree expanded outwards and were consumed by the current of the divine fire. The menacing divine fire seemed to be able to engulf Futian at any second. Soon, Futian was sucked into the storm. Rumble. Wave after wave of destructive heat gushed towards Futian. He knew that he was in danger. Divine light expanded outwards together with the branches of the ancient tree. The branches stretched towards the eye of the storm. However, the formless ancient tree seemed to catch on fire when it came in contact with the heat current. One could faintly make out the silhouette of the tree. Fortunately, even though the tree was bathed in divine fire, it was not reduced to ashes. Instead, the branches were still moving forward. The branches of the towering ancient tree that were on fire directly penetrated the eye of the storm. It was as though the branches wanted to wrap around it. Everyone else was shocked when they saw that the ancient tree was swallowing up the sun. However, almost simultaneously, the divine fire retaliated and surged directly into Futian's body. Rumble. Futian's body caught on fire instantly. It was as though he was about to be incinerated into nothingness. Futian's current body was formidable. It could be considered a divine body of the Great Path, especially since his body was fortified by the will of the Great Emperor and the Life Spirit. In terms of flesh, even the top giant-level figures could not be compared to Futian. However, even so, Futian's body was still burning at this moment. It seemed like he was about to be consumed by the divine fire. Not only was his flesh on fire, but even his spiritual soul was on the verge of being destroyed by the blaze. Even under such circumstances, Futian still did not give up. He was also not consumed and destroyed by the divine fire. The ancient tree completely enveloped the divine item of the solar realm in the eye of the storm. The ancient tree then immediately consumed it, pulling it into the life palace. It disappeared in an instant. At that moment, the surrounding flames of the way appeared to be extinguished, losing their previous destructive power. The surrounding flames of the way were constantly weakening. Gradually, they calmed down. The giant-level figures on the outside all sensed this. They revealed strange expressions. The intensity of the current of flames was weakening, and it appeared to be dissipating. What was going on? They were somewhat astonished. As they looked on, the power of the entire solar storm was gradually dissipating. It seemed that it would completely vanish. What had happened? Their gazes landed on Futian. Right now, Yi Futian's figure was standing there motionlessly. He was bathed in flames of the way. It was as though his body was being consumed by the flames. The crowd saw that even Yi Futian's indestructible body appeared to be burned. The various cultivators narrowed their gazes as they looked at Yi Futian. Would this peerless genius be incinerated by the flames of the way? A formless wind appeared in the space, guiding the scorching current of flames. No one knew where this wind came from. The scorching gale swept up. Yi Futian's figure had yet to dissipate. As the crowd watched, they could faintly make out strange light shining from his body. Divine halos seemed to emanate from him. He was not dead. When the crowd saw this scene, their hearts trembled. In the center of the solar storm, Yi Futian's body was actually not incinerated. Then, what about the divine item at the center of the solar storm? Did Yi Futian pocket it? Yi Futian's body did not move an inch. His body kept experiencing changes. The crowd could sense that his ridiculously powerful flesh was healing gradually from being burnt. His speed of recovery was baffling. Even at their level of existence, the cultivators would most likely not recover after being corroded by the solar storm. What exactly happened to Yi Futian's body? Everyone could faintly sense that a scorching heat was emanating from his body. It was as though his body contained a terrifying aura of flame. The crowd's speculation was more or less verified. From the look of things, the divine item located at the core of the solar storm was indeed retrieved by Yi Futian. However, how did he manage to do it with his current cultivation plane? Even cultivators who had been through the divine tribulations of the Great Path could not get close to the storm, let alone retrieve the divine item. Otherwise, the Solar Divine Palace or the super cultivator from Sun God Mountain would have pocketed the divine item long ago. The rest of them wouldn't even have a chance to be here. Yet, Yi Futian managed to do it. The cultivators from the original realm were aware that Yi Futian had pulled off a similar feat back when he was in the Shadow Realm. Countless intent gazes were fixed on Yi Futian. The secrets of his body seemed exceptionally appealing now. He possessed the flesh of Shunjia, the Great Emperor, the teachings of Great Emperor Ziwei, and many other secrets. It was as though there was nothing he couldn't do. Renhuang Chun and the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy could not help but walk up behind Yi Futian. They faced the various cultivators as their cold and indifferent gazes revealed looks of warning. However, even if they did not act this way, no one dared to touch Yi Futian. After all, everyone still vividly remembered that battle. Master had appeared in the world and was undefeatable when using the body of Shunjia, the Great Emperor. With that precedent, anyone who wished to attack Yi Futian had to think twice. Aside from the flow of scorching currents, the space suddenly fell silent. Yi Futian's body floated in space like a statue. He remained motionless and did not show signs of life. There was only a blazing aura emanating from within his body. No one knew what was happening to him now. At that moment, in Yi Futian's life palace, some intense changes were taking place. Renhuang Chun and the others continued to guard the area. The flames at the center faded. The entire solar realm changed as the flames receded. The cultivators from the solar realm could sense that the earth seemed to have undergone some changes. However, the ordinary cultivators couldn't pinpoint exactly what had changed. Only those with more profound cultivation could sense what was happening. The solar realm would most likely be different from now on. Time trickled past. The cultivators who were gathered at the center gradually left the place. It was meaningless for them to stay around. After all, they couldn't possibly attack Yi Futian to snatch the treasure. No one could kill him in the previous battle. Now, the cultivators had to seriously consider the consequences if they wanted to lay a finger on him. Only Renhuang Chun and the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy remained there. They were protecting Yi Futian. After a long while, the aura of flame on Yi Futian gradually subsided. In his life palace, a true world seemed to have formed. The sun and the moon both shone high in the sky while being surrounded by stars. He had finally seized control of the power of Een, the power of the sun, and the power of the stars. Moreover, he also possessed the undying flames of the divine fire of Wudong. Yi Futian opened his eyes, and beams of divine fire of the sun shot out from his pupils. The beams were scorching hot. His gaze seemed to be capable of burning everything he laid his eyes on. Renhuang-chan and the rest noticed that Yi Futian's temperament had changed once again. However, the changes were subtle. After all, Yi Futian possessed many other abilities. Yi Futian turned around and looked at the crowd. He said, "Let's go." The crowd nodded and followed him. After a while, they left the underground world and traversed up into the sky. They looked down, and all they saw was scorched earth. The flames had receded, but the ground was torched. The solar divine palace had been burnt to ashes. It now existed only in history. The solar realm also no longer contained the power of the sun. In the distance, many cultivators of the solar realm noticed that Yi Futian and his group had emerged. All of them focused their attention on him and his group. Among the onlookers were quite a few cultivators from the major forces of the solar realm. They could tell the identities of Yi Futian and his companions with a mere glance. The solar divine palace had been eradicated. From now on, the solar realm was also under the jurisdiction of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. If the Heavenly Mandate Academy wanted to, they could directly rule over the solar realm. However, the current solar realm seemed to have lost its value. Even the earthly divine fire had disappeared. It should have been pocketed by someone among Yi Futian's group. Most likely, Yi Futian himself had taken it. The local cultivators had all heard rumors of Yi Futian pulling off a similar feat in the Shadow Realm. What he did was something that the cultivators of the Sun God Mountain failed to do. Even the other top figures had trouble approaching the divine item. Most likely, only Yi Futian had a chance to succeed. Therefore, most of the onlookers actually speculated that Yi Futian, who had the weakest cultivation level among his group, had taken the divine item. Yi Futian scanned the crowd. Then, he said to his companions in a low voice, "We should not give up on the solar realm." All 9 supreme realms were part of the original realm and were the strongest lands of cultivation. They were also the future of the original realm. Yi Futian had decided to control the entire original realm, so he was unwilling to give up the solar realm just like that. "Who should we send here?" Lord Taishian asked. "Perhaps we can build an academy here." Yi Futian looked at Lord Taishian and suggested. "Then, we can recruit all the talented figures in the solar realm to cultivate there. It will become a branch of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Those with exceptional performance will be sent to the Heavenly Mandate realm to further their cultivation. How about it?" "Okay, your suggestion is plausible." Lord Taishian nodded in agreement. In the distance, all the cultivators were excited when they heard Yi Futian's words. They also had a chance to enter the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Currently, the Heavenly Mandate Academy was definitely the center of the original realm. There was no place greater than it. It was the king of the original realm. "We will further discuss this matter when we are back in the academy," Yi Futian concluded. The rest nodded. Then, they traversed space and left the solar realm. The cultivators of the solar realm stared at the scorched earth with mixed feelings. The news of Solar Divine Palace being eradicated soon spread across the 9 realms. Currently, all 9 realms were controlled by the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Hence, news traveled exceptionally fast. The news stirred up a huge commotion in the Central Emperor realm. In the Heavenly Mandate Academy, Yi Futian and the rest had returned. Someone was reporting the updates to them in the main hall. The person reported, "All the cultivators of Celestial Worthy Temple have evacuated the place and disappeared. Many of them are now dispersed in various locations in the Imperial realm." The Celestial Worthy Temple was supported by a superpower force. Therefore, they did not come to pledge their allegiance to the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Right now, everyone in the organization had been dismissed. Clearly, they knew that they would be in danger like the Solar Divine Palace. In reality, the reason the Solar Divine Palace was eradicated was the super cultivator from the Sun God Mountain. Otherwise, the Solar Divine Palace might have been spared from the calamity. Yi Futian nodded. The person left the hall after giving his report. The core members of Celestial Worthy Temple would most likely leave together with the people from the upper worlds and head to Celestial Worthy Mountain in the Divine Prefecture. As for the rest of the cultivators, it was meaningless for Yi Futian to hunt them down. Since he did not hunt down every single member of the Shin clan, he naturally would not do so to the members of Celestial Worthy Temple. Has the restructuring of the Central Emperor Realm forces been completed? Yi Futian asked Xiao Muyu, who was beside him. Hmm. Xiaomiu nodded and said, "It is more or less completed. Now, we have all the forces in the Central Emperor realm under control. After the battle in the Solar realm, we practically control every single force in the original realm, except forces from the outside worlds." Yi Futian nodded. Since they had completed marshalling all the forces in the original realm, it was time for him to unite the entire realm. After that, the outside forces would most likely not dare to attack them easily. Yi Futian mumbled, "But many other realms in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path are still suffering. They are defenseless against the invasion of the outside worlds." Lord Taishian nodded in agreement and responded, "Before you returned, many realms in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path were attacked and seized by the Dark World. Currently, many forces from the Dark World still have control over these realms." Yi Futian nodded. He looked into the distance and said, "Issue my order to the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. From this day forth, all 3,000 realms of the Great Path are under the protection of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. If any forces run rampant and kill the innocents in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, the Heavenly Mandate Academy will surely hunt down these forces." Many people were shocked when they heard Yi Futian's words. All their gazes were fixed on him. Yi Futian actually wanted to protect the entire 3,000 realms of the Great Path. The outside forces were so powerful, and the world of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path was vast. It was plausible for the Heavenly Mandate Academy to control the 9 realms, but it would most likely be an arduous task for them to expand their protection to the entire 3,000 realms of the Great Path. It was an insanely difficult mission. However, after hesitating for a moment, the cultivators present still nodded obediently. They bowed and said, "Understood." Many cultivators turned around and prepared to leave. Lord Taishian and the other top figures also said, "We'll help to relay this message too." They were gratified by Yi Futian's order. Yi Futian was now the college chief of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. After he seized control of the 9 supreme realms, it was righteous for him to be willing to protect the entire original realm from being tormented by disasters. Chapter 2277 Undercurrent. After Yi Futian issued the order, the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy went to various main realms in the Supreme Realms to spread the news. One of the realms was the Crimson Dragon Realm, where Yi Futian had cultivated before. On top of that, some cultivators began the construction of the teleportation grand matrices. The matrices would connect various main realms with the 9 realms as the center. Then, more matrices would be built to connect the main realms with the smaller realms. With this, the Academy could gradually expand its influence to the entire 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Moreover, the matrices could monitor the activities that occurred in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Before Yi Futian, no one had managed such a feat before. The 9 supreme imperial realms were the upper worlds, and their superiority was unfathomable. Everyone in the lower worlds yearned to explore the 9 realms. Unfortunately, various forces in the 9 realms had always contended with one another, and they had never achieved unity before. In the past, let alone unity across all 9 realms, even forces that coexisted in the same realm were frequently fighting for dominance. However, the old era had ended. Yi Futian and the Heavenly Mandate Academy had kicked off a new era, an era where they ruled the 9 realms. This was why they could rule the entire 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Of course, they were not doing this for authority and control. For the strongest force, this was not very significant. Everyone knew that Yi Futian did so due to his attachment to the original realm. He did not wish for it to be invaded and destroyed. After the crisis, the lands of the original realm seemed to have calmed down. Be it the cultivators from the Dark World, the empty Divine Realm, or the Divine Prefecture, they all kept a low profile. Before this, they could rampage around the original realm and could be seen all over the 9 supreme realms. However, a superpower had formed in the original realm. No force dared to act recklessly now. Right now, Yi Futian was cultivating in the starry cultivation court of the Ziwei segmentum. It was not just him. Many people were cultivating there. The Ziwei segmentum and the Heavenly Mandate Academy were connected. They could travel back and forth between the 2 realms at any time. This place was undoubtedly the most suitable holy land for cultivation. Hence, for the time being, they were all cultivating here. Right now, in the vast starry sky, the sound of Guqin filled the space. The sounds of the Guqin were solemn and sonorous. Yi Futian was actually bathed in the divine halo of the imperial stars as he played. It was an almost dreamlike scene. Beside him, Luo Su quietly listened to Yi Futian playing. As she was also an inheritor of the divine melody, Luo Su felt that Yi Futian infused more emotion than she did when he played. Even though this was a powerful and sonorous tune, it seemed to contain a heavy sense of longing. She believed that Yi Futian was certainly a person who had a lot of stories to tell. Yi Futian had now become the ruler of the original realm. He was just a 7th-tier high-level Renhuang, yet he could already command the various top figures to fight for him. What sort of treatment was this? Even the proud sons and vice-chiefs of superpowers of the divine prefecture did not have such rallying power. Who was Yi Futian, the person who ruled over the original realm, thinking about? At that moment, from down below, a person came towards them. When he arrived, he cast a glance at Yi Futian and then at the group of cultivators beside him. "What is the matter?" asked Gu Donglu, who had just finished cultivating, when he saw the person arrive. "I bring news from the original realm," replied the person. "In one of the realms, a force from the dark world is causing trouble. This force is mighty. Even the cultivators that we sent out have not returned. This might need to be reported to the college chief for him to handle." "All right, you may leave first," replied Gu Donglu as he nodded his head slightly. The person immediately left. Gu Donglu headed up into the sky and walked up beside Yi Futian. "Younger brother," called out Gu Donglu. Yi Futian immediately stopped playing and asked with a smile, "Third brother, what is the matter?" "There is news from the Heavenly Mandate Academy. A force from the dark world is causing trouble in a lower world of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. This force most likely has powerful backing," said Gu Donglu. Yi Futian frowned. He already ruled over the 9 realms. It was impossible for the cultivators of the dark world not to know about this. That could only mean that the other party was not afraid of this fact. "It seems that this force has powerful backing," commented Yi Futian. Responded Gu Donglu as he nodded his head. If the force were easy to deal with, Lord Taixian and the others in the academy would have already ordered people to handle it. However, since they sent someone to inform you, the force might have a cultivator who has survived a divine tribulation and is not easy to deal with. We might need Renhuang Chun to hold the fort." Gu Donglu clearly understood Lord Taishuan's intentions. If they could have handled it themselves, they would not have disturbed Yi Futian while he was cultivating. "Understood." Yi Futian nodded and said, "Third brother, please continue to cultivate here. After that, I will head out." Right now, for Gu Donglu and the others, cultivating was the most important issue at hand. In this current chaotic era, their abilities and cultivation planes were still lacking. They needed time to improve. Even if they went to the lower worlds, they would not be of much help. "All right," replied Gu Donglu as he nodded his head. He then saw Yi Futian walk away. When they saw him leaving, some people followed behind him and left the space. Yi Futian found Renhuang Chun, and they headed over to the Heavenly Mandate Academy through the teleportation Grand Matrix. In the academy, Yi Futian met with Lord Taixian and the others. He asked, "Lord Taixian, how is the situation overall?" These past few days, although the original realm appears peaceful, in reality, an undercurrent is surging. Cultivators from the dark world and the empty divine realm have gradually arrived in the original realm. It might be that they are acting in the same manner as the forces of the divine prefecture. They are channeling more forces into the original realm. Thus, the current situation might be even more complicated than before. However, they might still be acting cautiously, as they had yet to go overboard in the 9 realms for now. Lord Taixian continued, "However, in the lower worlds, there are forces which have begun to act." "What value do the lower worlds hold for them?" asked Yi Futian incredulously. Although the original realm had undergone some changes, the value of the lower worlds was still relatively small, especially for the superpowers. "We are not sure. However, it seems that it is related to cultivating. Many people have already lost their lives," said Lord Taixian. "This force is somewhat sinister. They will probably be hard to deal with. Understood, replied Futian as he nodded his head. Where are they now? Since he had already given the command to protect the original realm, he would kill anyone who acted against it. This was the first force that acted against it since he made the announcement. If he did not deal with them, his previous promise would ring hollow, and other forces would most likely follow suit. Right now, other forces were probably observing from the shadows. They were last seen in the Crimson Dragon realm. They have already traveled through quite many realms. As for where they are now, we will need to investigate once we arrive in the Crimson Dragon region, explained Lord Taixian. All right, said Futian with a cold and indifferent look in his eyes. The Crimson Dragon region's main realm was the Crimson Dragon realm. He had previously cultivated there. Emperor Xia's realm was also in the Crimson Dragon region. As Futian said this, his group immediately departed and headed towards the Crimson Dragon realm through the teleportation Grand Matrix. Futian and the others arrived in the palace of the Crimson Dragon realm. The Crimson Dragon Emperor personally came to welcome them. When he saw the current Futian, the Crimson Dragon Emperor was overwhelmed. Although they had not had many interactions, he knew everything that had happened to Futian. Back in the day, Futian and his brother Yushang had previously cultivated in the Crimson Dragon realm for a period of time. They had even stirred up quite a storm when they entered the palace. Later on, Futian followed the juniors of Crimson Dragon Emperor and ventured to the Heavenly Mandate realm to cultivate. After several decades, when Futian once again returned to the Crimson Dragon realm, he returned as the college chief of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, the ruler of the 9 realms, and the person who controlled the original realm. This made him seem like some surreal figure. Crimson Dragon Emperor greeted Futian as he walked forwards. The Crimson Dragon Emperor bowed and said, "Greetings, Renhuang Yi." "No need for formalities," said Futian. "Crimson Dragon Emperor, do you know where the force of the Dark World is now?" Responded Crimson Dragon Emperor as he nodded his head. "We have been keeping tabs on their movements. If Renhuang Yi wishes to head over there, I will lead the way." "All right, let's head over immediately," said Futian. As he said this, their group immediately departed. Their speed was breakneck. Along the way, Futian asked Crimson Dragon Emperor, "What has this force done?" Crimson Dragon Emperor explained, "They used people to refine life force for their own cultivation. It is an extremely evil dark art. Currently, several realms face the danger of being eliminated. Before this, the Heavenly Mandate Academy also sent people down here, but even they have not made it back alive. The other party might be an extremely powerful force in the Dark World. Otherwise, they would not dare to act without restraint." This caused Futian's gaze to narrow. A cold, murderous look flashed past in his eyes. They actually went to such lengths. This force had openly massacred people in the original realm and used them to refine the life force of their own cultivation. The group traversed the sky at a rapid pace. After some time, they arrived at a realm. The realm was filled with the aura of death. The entire space was dark, and there were no signs of life. The ground was littered with corpses. The scene could only be described as tragic. The scene of corpses littered across the ground shocked Futian and the others greatly. Yet alone Futian, even the cultivators from the lower worlds of the Heavenly Mandate realm were livid. Their gazes were filled with murderous looks. The divine light of space flashed, and in an instant, Futian appeared on the ground. A woman carrying a little girl was sitting on the ground. She stared blankly at her surroundings. The eyes of the little girl were filled with terror. A few dead bodies were lying in front of them. "Bring them to the Crimson Dragon realm," instructed Futian. "Crimson Dragon Emperor, make arrangements for all the survivors in this realm to be relocated to the Crimson Dragon realm." "Understood, Renhuang Yi." Crimson Dragon Emperor nodded. He was similarly filled to the brim with anger. Murderous intent rampaged in his mind. It was too cruel. This was a living hell. Countless lives in the original realm were used by the force of the Dark World for their cultivation. Almost all the cultivators in this realm had been eradicated. The situation was too tragic. Buzz. Renhuang Qian unleashed a frightening will, and it expanded outwards into the distance. He said, "Let's locate the force of the Dark World first. Otherwise, more lives will be sacrificed." Futian stood up, and with a flash, he appeared beside Ren Huangchen. Starlight twinkled around Ren Huangchen, and it enveloped the group within it. The next moment, starlight shone, and they disappeared. Not long after, they arrived at another realm. The aura of death also pervaded this realm. A terrifying will of death seemed to envelop the heavens and earth. The clouds of death loomed over the entire sky, covering the sun. "Found them," said Ren Huangchen. He took a step forward, and the group once again shifted to another place. When they appeared again, they were in mid-air, looking down at the ground below. There was a huge altar set up. Towering black stone pillars surrounded the altar. On the altar sat an exotic black-robed youth. Many cultivators gathered around the altar. They seemed to be protecting the black-robed youth. From within this altar, countless shadows seemed to rush out, screaming into the distance endlessly. In the divine consciousness of Ren Huangchen and the others, they saw countless cultivators shrouded and bound by these shadows. The cultivators were swept up into the air, and then their life force was stripped and extracted from them. Their life force was channeled into the center of the altar and consumed by this youth. Bang! A frightening aura burst forth from Ren Huangchen's figure. It severed the connection between the altar and the vast world. The cultivators of this realm were immediately released. The people who were bound freed themselves. They revealed shocked looks. Down below, a few figures appeared on the stone pillars of the altar. All of them had extremely powerful cultivation. Among them, a black-robed elder had an aura so terrifying that even Ren Huangchen felt threatened. As expected, it was his Lord Taixian. The others had surmised this. There was an existence who had survived a divine tribulation of the great path among the force from the dark world. This force was most likely a superpower from the dark world that had descended upon the original realm. They were using the lives of the members of the original realm to refine the life force for cultivation. The youth at the center of the altar raised his head. Menacing light of death flashed in his pupils as he stared at Futian and his group. The youth's level of cultivation was very powerful. He was an 8th-tier Runhuang. His aura was unfathomable. Moreover, he was protected by the tribulation-level mighty existence. One could imagine the status of the youth. This youth was most likely a direct descendant of the leader of a giant-level force in the dark world. Its status was akin to that of the Holy Land of Taichu. "You've disturbed my cultivation," said the youth. His tone was sinister. He had only recently arrived at the original realm. It was because there were 3,000 realms of the Great Path here, so there were plenty of living beings for him to use for cultivation. There were restrictions in the dark world, so he couldn't do as he pleased. However, he could do whatever he wanted here. Rumble. Terrifying might of the Great Path descended and pressed down from the heavens. Murderous intent flared up in Ren Huangchen's eyes as he stared at the black-robed youth. He had cultivated in the Ziwei segmentum for many years. Yet, he had never seen such a bloodthirsty cultivator like this youth. The value of human lives was insignificant in the youth's eyes. He actually used people to refine his life force for his own cultivation. The moment Ren Huangchen unleashed his might, the sky seemed to crumble. Rumbling sounds kept thundering. The stone pillars collapsed, and the altar was destroyed. The vast space became the domain of Ren Huangchen. However, at the same time, the tribulation-level elder from the Dark World Force stepped forward, and a storm that struck fear in the hearts of the people around swept out. A dark aura churned in the sky. Death loomed over the vast space. Everyone was trapped in this domain of death. It was as though all the cultivators here would be slaughtered. Both of them were figures of the same level. Neither of them wanted to act recklessly. Chapter 2279. Kill. From afar, more and more cultivators moved closer. With a few leaps, they arrived at the altar. Futian scanned the incoming crowd. These cultivators all had strong auras. They were most likely from different forces in the dark world. However, at this moment, they seemed to be from the same alliance. The gazes of the cultivators were fixed on Futian and his group as they unleashed their might. From this scene, Futian understood that this youth was from an overlord force in the dark world. Its position was just like that of Ziwei Imperial Palace in the Ziwei segmentum. All the other top forces had to obey them. No wonder the youth dared to act so presumptuously. His first words upon seeing their arrival were that they were disturbing his cultivation. "Could I trouble you, elder, to send the members of this realm to the side?" asked Futian. Renhuang Chun nodded in acknowledgement. Immediately, his will enveloped the entire realm. In an instant, all the cultivators in the realm felt a formless pressure acting on them. For them, this pressure was similar to that of a deity. "Be gone," ordered Renhuang Chun. A terrifying, formless power reverberated outwards. At that moment, the cultivators in the realm were sent flying backward by the shockwave. The formless power pushed them to the boundary of the realm. They were kept outside by a gigantic defensive shroud of starlight. This was also to protect them. In the heavens above, Renhuang Chun raised the scepter in his hand. Starlight flashed in his pupils as he stared at the people below. Even the tribulation-level black-robed elder felt a sense of danger at that moment. He could naturally sense how powerful Renhuang Chun was. Someone informed him over transmitted thoughts about the battle at Solar Divine Palace. The expression of the black-robed elder immediately turned much more serious. His black robe rose as the deadly aura around him thickened. "Kill them," ordered Futian. There was resolve in his tone as he said this. These cultivators from the dark world slaughtered the innocents in the original realm, causing the annihilation of an entire realm. They killed countless lives and destroyed many realms. It was impossible to spare the lives of these cultivators. Futian was determined to kill all of them regardless of their status. Rumble. The terrifying starry divine swords descended from the sky and charged towards the cultivators in the air. The strongest starry divine sword pointed straight at the black-robed elder. The swords plummeted like meteorites. The scene was frightening. The black-robed elder swept a glance up into the sky. Endless dark light gathered in the vast space. A dark giant appeared out of thin air. It was gigantic and was like the deity of the darkness. Many arms extended from the torso of the giant. All the arms attacked at once. Black punches shattered the space and charged towards the divine swords. The two powers collided. Immediately, cracks appeared in the heavens and earth as an unparalleled storm rampaged. Even the giant-level cultivators were knocked back by the shockwave. Only Renhuang Chun and the black-robed elder stood still in the middle of the battlefield. Futian's figure was also sent flying into the distance by the shockwave. However, he looked at the battlefield with a cold gaze and said, "There's no need to look after me. Kill them." All the giant-level figures around him charged in different directions. Top figures from the dark world also emerged from the crowd. In an instant, a terrifying destructive storm erupted in the sky. A massive battle was taking place in the sky above this realm. The scene was more shocking than that when they were at Solar Divine Palace. Kacha. After a short while, the earth split apart, and the realm was shattered. It could not withstand the attack of a figure at Renhuang Chen's level. The realm itself was being torn apart. In another location, Futian stood alone in the void. His gaze was fixed on one person. He was staring at the youth who was previously cultivating on the altar. This person was also the culprit for this massacre of the living beings within the realm. The youth seemed to have noticed something. He glanced at Futian from where he stood. Their gazes met, and the frightening divine light of the great path shot out from their pupils. Boom! Astonishing divine light shot out from Futian's eyes. It attempted to penetrate straight into the consciousness of the other party. It was his eye sorcery. However, the youth's gaze was similarly frightening. As Futian's gaze invaded his own, the silhouette of a reaper appeared in the other party's gaze. It was as though a divine residence was erected within his eyes. The purest power of death lurked within his eyes, blocking off the attack of the invading eye sorcery. The youth's gaze suddenly became even more terrifying. Beams of light of the reaper shot out straight from his eyes. They formed true death currents of the great path, which were extremely pure. They immediately shot towards Futian at astonishing speeds. Futian stood there motionlessly. His body was like that of a divine being. He allowed the death current to invade his body. The divine light of the great path flowed over his figure, and the death currents seemed to be flooded by the light. The death currents could not touch him at all. Currently, the power of Futian's flesh had already reached an incredible stage. The youth frowned. After he arrived in the original realm, he had heard of Yi Futian's name. Rumor has it that this person was very powerful and was the top figure in the original realm. Even in the divine prefecture, he was a monstrous figure at the very top. There were many legends about him. For example, it was rumored he controlled the corpse of Shanjia, the great emperor, and inherited the teachings of great Emperor Ziwei. However, the youth was similarly a figure whose name was renowned in the dark world. His cultivation plane was also higher than Yi Futian's. Yi Futian was a 7th-tier Runhuang while he was at the 8th tier. The two of them exchanged gazes across space. Then, the youth saw that Yi Futian traversed the space and moved towards him. The youth floated up, and his body became the deathly body of the Great Path. Dark divine light circulated around him. His dark long hair danced in the wind. He was akin to the Reaper. He pointed his finger towards the sky, and immediately the clouds churned and the wind howled. The entire space was shaking. A boundless, deathly imprint appeared in the sky. He then pointed a finger at Yi Futian. The myriads of death currents instantly moved toward Yi Futian. The death currents flooded the sky. It was the purest power of death, seemingly able to annihilate every form of life. Boom! The boundless, deathly imprint transformed into a river of death that flooded Yi Futian's body. However, an awe-inspiring halo flowed around Yi Futian's divine body of the Great Path. Two polar opposite powers, the power of Yin and the power of the sun, flowed on the surface of his body. His body became the way, and the deathly imprint, which came close to his body, was destroyed. The boundless, deathly imprint failed to inundate Yi Futian's divine body of the Great Path. He broke free from the current as the divine light flowed around him. This caused the black-robed youth to frown. Under the attack of his deathly imprint, even an 8th-tier cultivator with a flawless Great Path would be instantly destroyed. However, Yi Futian's body seemed indestructible and immortal. With the power of Yin and the sun's power, its destructive power was also very frightening. His attack actually did not affect Yi Futian. This caused the black-robed youth to sense a sliver of danger. Buzz! Yi Futian accelerated, descending like a meteorite bathed in flames as he charged towards the black-robed youth. Boom! Astonishing death currents burst forth from the body of the black-robed youth. In an instant, the vast space was buried in the will of death that took the form of a reaper. Its pupils swept towards Yi Futian, who was charging down towards it. That eye was like the eye of hell. A hell reaper appeared and devoured everything. Limitless death currents swirled towards Yi Futian's body as if they were tentacles. When the power submerged Yi Futian's body, despite his godlike body, his body still began to corrode while his divine light was suppressed. The death will was eroding into him. It was like Yi Futian had fallen into a divine wheel domain. Countless illusions of ghosts and deities surrounded the space he was in. It was like true hell, and no end was in sight. Clearly, this black-shirt Renhuang of the 8th plane was not just your ordinary cultivator. He was extremely powerful. Boom! At that moment, a gorgeous diagram suddenly sprouted from Yi Futian's body. It was like a divine diagram of the Great Path. A sun and a moon seemed to surround it. The polarizing power of Yin and Yang transformed into a Yin-Yang divine diagram. Moreover, it kept growing bigger and bigger. The frightening power of Yin and Yang burst from within and wiped away all the death currents surrounding Yi Futian. It had countered all the demonic powers. A domain, huh? Yi Futian scanned the large Great Path domain. It looked like he was stuck inside it. The yin-yang diagram suddenly became gigantic and floated behind him. The divine fire of the sun and the power of yin swirled out at the same time. Moreover, the yin-yang diagram also contained the mighty sword will, which had been transformed into the sun sword and the shadow sword. Both sword wills darted around him and wiped out all the demons. Then, a frightening rumbling filled the air. Under the divine swords of yin and yang, the domain formed by the divine wheel of the Great Path trembled. At that moment, a Hell Reaper appeared within the domain. It looked just like the youngster. His heart fluctuated slightly as he felt the destructive powers hidden within the yin-yang diagram. These were two extreme powers, the divine power of the sun and the divine power of yin. However, they were both controlled by one person. The young man trained in the purest form of the great path of death. Moreover, his level was higher than Yi Futian's. However, his great path was still suppressed by Yi Futian's strength. His body definitely contained some extraordinary divine powers. Then, the horrendous Hell Reaper extended its palm to grab Yi Futian. Multiple horrible marks of the Reaper were within its palm. Through the dark divine light, loud rumbling noises filled the air. Its arm faced upwards, and its palm instantly shrouded the entire space. Escape seemed impossible. Just how strong is the full-powered attack of a Run Huang of the 8th plane? Yi Futian wanted to see just how strong he was. Vong. Divine lights flashed. Yi Futian's divine body of the great path shot down. He did not try to dodge and charged straight towards the giant palm of the Hell Reaper that contained multiple marks of the Reaper. Divine lights of yin and yang surrounded Yi Futian's body as he transformed into a sword of the great path. At that moment, his body could transform into the great path, and with that, all the powers of the great path that he wielded would be able to blossom. At that moment, his figure, while dashing downward, was more beautiful and attractive than a meteor. The Hell Reaper's giant palm smashed outward and clashed with Yi Futian's body. The marks of the Reaper in the middle of its palm exploded into frightening divine lights of death that sent wild shockwaves toward Yi Futian's body. Yi Futian's body, which had transformed into a sword, was blocked by the Reaper's marks. The destructive light spread toward his surroundings. A crisp crack sounded. Yi Futian's body of the great path had become notably darker. However, at that moment, cracks had begun to appear on the marks of the Reaper. The number of cracks increased rapidly, and after a while, they were destroyed and turned into frightening death currents. As for Yi Futian, his body continued to charge downward after he directly punctured the Hell Reaper's arm. Each and every inch of the Reaper's arm where Yi Futian passed by cracked and crumbled. In an instant, he had reached his opponent's body. Rumble. The great path domain crumbled in that instant. A figure was sent flying outside. The giant Hell Reaper's body was also destroyed. Heaven and earth returned to normal. Yi Futian floated in the sky. While the divine light on his body had dimmed considerably, his image was still breathtaking. Feeling the residual death currents inside his body destroyed by divine powers, Yi Futian could not help but feel somewhat shocked. If it were someone else, they would have most certainly died under the marks of the Reaper. Underneath, the black-shirt youth coughed fresh blood out from his mouth. His face was slightly pale as he raised his head to stare at Yi Futian, who was floating in the sky. In the dark world, he had never suffered such an overwhelming defeat. Moreover, his opponent today was a practitioner whose plane level was below his. Then, at that moment, a yin-yang diagram floated in the sky. Divine lights of yin and yang descended simultaneously, shrouding the endless space, including the black-shirt youth's body. The frightening radiance of a divine sword shot downward in an attempt to annihilate its intended target. As the divine sword closed in to kill the black-shirt youth on the spot, balls of frightening dark clouds suddenly appeared above the youth's head. The clouds rumbled and roared. Then, a demonic figure seemed to appear. Black blades of light seemed to appear from within the frightening dark clouds. When the divine sword arrived, it was devoured and had failed to strike its target. Roar! The demonic cloud, carrying the demonic figure within it, flew towards Yi Futian in the sky. In an instant, the entire space looked like it was about to be destroyed. It was a horrifying scene. However, at that same moment, a ray of divine light of space veiled Yi Futian's body. When the demon attempted to devour him, the divine light of space directly transported Yi Futian away. It was Old Ma. At the same time, a powerful heavyweight-level figure also appeared beside the black-shirt youth. Yi Futian's cold glare shifted towards his opponent. He had failed to kill him. He was already able to estimate his combat strength through the battle earlier. With the number of abilities and skills he possessed at that moment, he would dominate his opponent at the 7th plane level. If he were on the 8th plane, even freak show and genius-level existences would not be a problem. Since he could defeat the black-shirt youth, Ninghua would most likely not be a problem. Among the giants, he should have already reached the peak. His gaze shifted toward the powerful cultivator who initiated the move earlier. Yi Futian's eyes, which held a murderous aura, exhibited his eagerness to try. He wanted to duke it out with the heavyweight figure. The black-shirt youth stared at Futian. The pride and arrogance that he displayed earlier were no longer evident in his eyes. He completely lost to Futian. If it were not for the support from someone else, he might have died at Futian's hands. "Retreat," the black-shirt youth said. He wanted to retreat and temporarily leave this place. The practitioners of the original realm seemed somewhat difficult to deal with. As soon as he spoke, the top figures of the dark world prepared to leave the battlefield. However, when they raised their head, they could only see Futian speaking to Ren Huangqian, who was standing high above in the sky. "Seal this realm. Do not let a single person leave." "Roger." Ren Huangqian nodded. Then, in an instant, the entire space was shrouded by a frightening light screen. The light screen was surrounded by divine lights of stars, making it look like a real galaxy. The space within had been turned into a starry domain. Unless the starry domain broke, none of their enemies would be able to leave. The youth's gaze turned cold as he saw this unfold before him. The people of the original realm actually wanted to make them stay there. Chapter 2281. Support. "Come up," said Ren Huangqian, high up in the air. Suddenly, multiple figures charged into the clouds towards the sky. Then, they landed beside Ren Huangqian. They knew what Ren Huangqian wanted to do. At the same time, the cultivators of the opposing side had also gathered together in an area below them. The black-robed elder raised his head to look at Ren Huangqian. In the earlier battle, he had already sensed that his opponent's battle strength was above his own, and the scepter in his opponent's hands was also extraordinary. This person was very frightening. Then, the star light screen of the area began to twirl. Countless rays of starlight descended from above. Intense roars rang in the air. After that, blades of starry divine swords emerged high up in the sky. At the same time, as Ren Huangqian extended his hand holding the scepter directly connected to the starlight screen and devoured the limitless starlight. After that, everything converged and transformed into a sky-reaching, divine sword that pointed downward. A ray of starlight shot outward into the sky. It was as if all the starlight in the 9 heavens had landed onto the starry light screen and converged into the starry divine sword, making it more powerful. One after another, the gigantic starry divine sword seemed intent on burying the entire world. The top figures of the dark world felt a sense of crisis. Each of them released a frightening power of the great path from their bodies. The incredible existence above who had gone through a tribulation wanted to annihilate them all on the spot. The black-shirt youth's gaze was cold. Aurora of the Reaper shot out from his pupils. In the dark world, the faction he belonged to was one of the best. Apart from the Dark Court and a few other factions, no one else would dare to act so impudently in front of them, not to mention the fact that they were trying to kill them. Now, in this land within the Void Realm, which had long become abject, there was actually a faction that intended to destroy them. The black-robed elder had a solemn expression on his face. He stood in front of the youth. The cultivators of the dark world also gathered behind him. Then, his black robe fluttered, and a frightening aura burst from his body. It seemed as if black clouds had covered the sky and blocked out the starlight. A world of inferno seemed to have emerged in this space and covered the vast sky and boundless land. It also seemed to want to devour Ren Huangqian and the others in the sky. Inside this space, multiple shadows of demons and ghosts appeared. They held dark spears, crimson-colored demonic hammers, reaper's sickles, and many others. It looked like the real hell. There was also a frightening light of catastrophe blinking. It was the light of catastrophe from the Reaper. It crushed anything in its path. A frightening treasure also appeared in front of the black-robed elder. It looked like it was crafted from a divine wheel of the great path. A powerful and frightening power seemed to be propagating within it. The light of catastrophe flashed incessantly. It looked like a mighty dark magic item had been smelted into his divine wheel of the great path. They had merged into one, and it was extremely powerful. "Kill!" Ren Huangqian shouted from the sky. Suddenly, the endless starry divine light swept past the darkness. With vast and mighty world-destroying strength, it shot downward. Frightening sounds of rumbling filled the skies. The starry divine swords pierced through heaven and earth. Accompanied by the descent of the blinding divine light, the swords shot toward the cultivators of the dark world. All the cultivators of the dark world released intimidating power of the great path as they prepared to block it. The strongest person was naturally the black-robed elder, who blocked the attack right in front of him. When the starry divine swords pierced into the space of inferno, the demons and ghosts directly slammed into them. Blades of light of catastrophe also shot towards them. In an instant, heaven and earth seemed to crumble as a devastating and destructive storm appeared within the space of inferno. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The starry divine sword in the middle contained the greatest might. It shot downward. Demons and ghosts were directly punctured and destroyed. They could not block it at all. This was also the sword that killed the tribulation-level existence on Sun God Mountain in the past. One could only imagine just how scary it was. Boom. The sword smashed into its enemy. Like a god stopping a godslayer, the sword directly shot towards the cultivators below. The black-robed elder had a solemn expression. He threw the black alms bowl in his hand into the sky. Suddenly, the black alms bowl transformed into a separate space that devoured everything. The gigantic starry divine sword was actually devoured by this black alms bowl. Then, inside the bowl, the starry divine light and destructive dark divine light exploded at the same time. Loud sounds of explosions continuously came from within. The black alms trembled violently. The black-robed elder raised an arm and held the black alms bowl. A surge of the power of the great path flowed into the bowl. The dark energy in the surrounding area also surged crazily into the bowl, as if trying to devour all power of the great path. The shaking became more and more violent. Two rays of divine light turned around and shot upwards into the sky. A ray of starry divine light. A ray of destructive light of catastrophe. They were interwoven together. In the sky, Ren Huangqin's purple robe also began to flutter. He extended his foot forward. Divine powers poured into the scepter in his hand from below. Then, a loud explosion ensued. A loud and violent sound came from the black alms bowl. The black-robed elder could be heard letting out a slight grunt. After that, vague sounds of something breaking and cracking could be heard. Then, many people were surprised to find out that underneath the giant black alms bowl, cracks had appeared. Blades of frightening starry divine light leaked from within. It was as if they were going to burst out from there at any moment. The black-robed elder's black robe expanded. He raised his hand to point at the black alms bowl. Then, a more powerful divine power of the great path seemed to surge into it. Two types of auras crashed and collided with each other within. Boom! A powerful blast rang in the air. The black alms bowl finally burst open. The black-robed elder spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His aura had also weakened significantly. However, even though the black alms bowl was broken, the starry divine sword was also destroyed. It did not continue homing in to kill its target. He destroyed a divine wheel of the great path. The hearts of many cultivators from the dark world beat violently. That was a tribulation-level existence. He was actually pushed into this state? He had one divine wheel of the great path destroyed, and he also suffered severe injuries. It looked like it would be near impossible for him to recover. This strike was enough to diminish the prospects of this black-robed elder. It seemed like he couldn't progress even a step further. His cultivation could even deteriorate. However, at that moment, it was not time yet to think about such things. Right then, they did not even know if they would be able to get out of there alive, much less think about anything related to the future. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Starry divine lights began to converge again. In the sky, the star light screen continued to breed devastating powers. It looked like it would not stop until they were annihilated. The cultivators from the dark world knew that they had encountered someone extremely difficult this time. They were actually going to kill them for a few commoners of some realms. Bang! However, at that moment, the star light screen suddenly shook violently. The space they were in was already sealed. However, for such violent shaking to occur, it was clear that someone was attacking from the outside. Ren Huangqian spread his divine consciousness outside the sealed territory and saw that many cultivators had appeared. Then, another loud bang. Multiple cracks appeared on the starlight screen. After that, it broke. High in the sky, from multiple different directions, cultivators stood tall and proud. The auras emanating from their bodies were frightening. They were all top-level cultivators. Seeing the scene before them, light returned to the eyes of the dark world cultivators below. Someone had come to support them. Renhuang focused on the cultivators who appeared, only to see one of them stepping forward at this moment. The aura permeated from the man was terrifying, as he was also an existence of the tribulation level. The other cultivators who with him also possessed an aura that was equally as frightening. These people were from the dark world. They recognized Futian and his party. Almost all the top cultivators from the original realm had participated in that battle at Heavenly Mandate Academy. Only those who descended on the original realm later did not witness what took place during the battle. Even so, they had heard about Futian and Ziwei Segmentum, the cultivators from Dark Court. Futian marveled. That powerful existence who came forward may be from the Dark Court. Like the Imperial Palace in Divine Prefecture, the Dark Court was a ruling power in the Dark World. It had an unknown number of cultivators who possessed unimaginable prowess. Gaiqiong, who was killed by Futian, was one of Divine Prefecture's divine generals. Of course, in the Imperial Palace of Divine Prefecture, there was no lack of individuals with this cultivation level, and the Dark Court was no exception. This powerful existence who had arrived was one of the cultivators presided over the 8 thrones in the Dark Court, a supreme existence ranked close to the top, the Infernal King himself. The reason for the Infernal King to come in person was because he had an extraordinary relationship with this young man in black. He came from the same bloodline as the young man and later became a cultivator on the throne after he had entered the Dark Court to cultivate. In the cultivation world, anyone who had passed the divine tribulation of the Great Path was regarded as a supreme cultivator. In Ziwei Segmentum, aside from the previous palace lord, only Renhuang Chun was a cultivator of the tribulation level. Donghua domain in which Futian had cultivated before Emperor Shi, it was rumored that only the domain chief of Donghua domain had survived the divine tribulation of the Great Path. And the domain chief of the domain chief's manor was a supreme being who could rule in the stead of the great emperor if need be. Therefore, cultivators of the tribulation level were highly regarded. The fact that a supreme existence of tribulation level was willing to protect the young man in black called the young man's background into question. It was not hard to imagine from what great force was he originated. This was also the consensus between Futian and the others. In truth, the youth in black came from one of the top principalities in the Dark World, the Infernal Clan, which ruled boundless territory within the Dark World. Legend had it that in the ancient times, the clan had godlike cultivators passing down their inheritance until this day. However, the true depth of their strength was unfathomable. The Infernal Clan had produced many extraordinary figures for the Dark World. Among them, the Infernal King was the most excellent. When he was appointed, he was named the Infernal King, the master of the Infernal Throne. Strictly speaking, the Infernal King was the junior brother of the current clan leader of the Infernal Clan. Therefore, the young man in black should be addressing him as Uncle Master. It was not hard to deduce the status of the young man in black in the Dark World. This was why he acted so recklessly when he reached the original realm, refining the vitality of other cultivators for his own gain with impunity, destroying the realm at every chance he had. The Infernal King's eyes were indifferent, and a chill shrouded this space. He was the top 3 existence among the 8 kings of the Dark Court. In addition to the 2 top cultivators among the 8 kings, there were also individual supreme existences above the 8 kings, as well as that old monster who had previously hidden in the shadows. His status could be considered as being at the very peak of all existence. Their entry to the original realm this time was supervised by him. In addition to the battle at the Heavenly Mandate Academy last time, the Dark World had sent a cultivator who had passed the second divine tribulation. On the outside, it appeared that he commanded all the cultivators of the Dark World in the original realm. Uncle Master. Futian's eyes sharpened when he heard the young man in black calling out to the Infernal King. His eyes swept toward the Infernal King and the youth in black. Was this young man have some direct connection with the Dark Court? No wonder he was so brazen to kill without discrimination. The Infernal King nodded slightly, but the look on his face was gloomy. His eyes swept over at Futian and the others coldly, and there was a strong murderous intent in his heart. However, he was also a little apprehensive, so he did not dare to attack Futian outright. After all, the memory of that battle was still fresh in his mind. The teacher who came to this world may be of the Imperial realm, and they couldn't afford to offend someone at this level. Remember what kind of character the Saint Emperor of the Holy Land of Taichu was. A supreme being who had passed the second divine tribulation of the Great Path was comparable to his senior brother's position as the clan leader of Infernal Clan in the Dark World. Divine prefecture aside, even in the entire world, such a person was at the top of all existences. A person at this level was almost killed on the spot. If it weren't for the opponent's mercy, he would have been killed most unceremoniously with great embarrassment to boot. Futian, now, was regarded as one of the thorniest characters who could not be provoked, at least in the land of the original realm. So it was best not to touch him. Anything that happened to Futian would anger that mysterious but supreme existence, and they would not be able to stay in the original realm. Let me settle the matter by taking him away. What do you say? The Infernal King proposed while looking at Futian. His group was actually a bit stronger in strength, but he didn't dare to touch Futian carelessly. At the moment, several existences of the Imperial realm had reached a tacit agreement with one another, achieving a state of balance. If the teacher was truly a hidden figure of the Imperial realm, any provocations might have unforeseeable consequences, and even he would not be able to bear the responsibility. Therefore, even the Infernal King had his concerns. Uncle Master, the young man in black looked at the Infernal King questioningly. Would they let him go? The powerful existence among them, who was of the tribulation level, had lost his divine wheel of the Great Path. If it weren't for the Infernal King and the others who arrived in time, Futian and the others would have killed and destroyed them right here. And now, to spare them? To let the whole matter go? Even though he had heard of that battle, could there really be someone of the Imperial realm? Even if someone of the Imperial realm were really to intervene, wouldn't the Master of the Dark Court come in person? Obviously, as someone merely cultivating in the Infernal Clan, he did not have as many concerns as the Infernal King. After all, their responsibilities were different. The Infernal King was responsible for the entire situation. Likewise, Futian could never allow the Infernal King to take the young man away. His eyes showed indifference. This man was a menace in the original realm, killed and slaughtered at will at every turn to bring hell on earth, causing many to lose their lives. How could he let him go just like that? Can you leave him? Futian pointed to the young man in black and replied. He could see that the cultivators from the Dark World didn't want to offend him, and that was why he proposed that he would drop the matter when he could take the young man with him. At any rate, this blood debt must be repaid. The dark eyes of the Infernal King looked at Futian, revealing a mighty and coercive spirit upon his person, exerting a tremendous sense of oppression on him. He thought he had already conceded quite a lot to Futian. As the Infernal King, he didn't pursue this matter further and was willing to let the whole thing go as long as he could take his people away. But Futian refused to give up and demanded him to hand over the young man. Renhuang Qin's figure appeared in front of Futian, the scepter in his hand covered in brilliant light, releasing wisps of starry divine light. A powerful pressure was now released toward the Infernal King, as he could faintly detect that the strength of the Infernal King was above the old man in the black robe. If there was a battle, they had no advantage to speak of. They may want to detain these people, but it would be difficult. Chapter 2283, Thoughts. No. The Infernal King stared at Futian and refused. A mighty pressure permeated the atmosphere, colliding with the aura of Renhuang Qin. Renhuang Qin might be strong, but as the number 3 person presiding over the 8 thrones of the Dark Court, he was not afraid of Renhuang Qin. He didn't attack Futian because he had some reservations regarding that mysterious teacher, not because of Futian himself or any of these cultivators from Heavenly Mandate Academy. Otherwise, he would have already gone to war with them. As a cultivator from the Dark Court and as the master of the Infernal Throne, apart from those who had survived the Second Divine Tribulation and the Emperor of the Highest, not many others could scare him. As for his nephew, how could he hand him over? Whether it was from the standpoint of the Dark Court or the standpoint of the clan, if he had handed his nephew over today, wouldn't that mean the Dark Court was in fear of a junior figure? And how would he explain this to his senior brother? In the Dark World, his senior brother, the clan leader of the Infernal Clan, was an existence with transcendent status. Clearly, Futian felt the aura from the Infernal King. He knew it was highly improbable for this master of a throne from the Dark Court to relinquish the guilty party to him. Surveying the situation and judging from the makeup of the cultivators present at the moment, the Dark Court was a few degrees stronger than they were. If they started a war, they could have a high chance of losing. He glanced at the young man in black in the sky below, and his murderous intention was stronger still. "This is not over yet," said Futian coldly. He then looked at the Infernal King and said, "Please leave, all of you." The Infernal King knew what Futian meant. Obviously, the matter would not end there, and he was not so quick to write this off, but he was constrained by the current circumstances to let them go. In the future, he would find a way to execute his nephew. Even though you have powerful backings, you need to recognize who are the masters of this world, said the Infernal King. He then waved his hand, beckoning his people to go. The master of the Divine Prefecture, such as Donghuang the Great, the master of the Dark Court, the evil emperor of the empty divine realm, and several other supreme cultivators were considered the true masters of this world. Perhaps there was someone behind Futian who was on the level of the great emperor, but if he was foolish enough to declare war on the Dark World, then the master of the Dark Court himself may get involved personally. Before leaving, the young man in black looked at Futian coldly, as well as that strong cultivator whose divine wheel of the great path had been shattered. Both left with reluctance. They came from the Infernal Clan and were humiliated in the land of the original realm. If it weren't for the intervention of the Infernal King, they would have died here. This was such an unbearable disgrace. In the distance, dark currents tumbled and roared. Soon, those men disappeared. Watching them leave, Futian retracted his focus. Although he was now in the realm of Upper Renhuang, and his combat power had reached the level of near invincible, just a hair beneath those major figureheads, he was still a little behind if he wanted to contend with the peak forces in this world. "Let's first settle the cultivators from this world first, and take them to other domains," said Futian. This domain had been destroyed by this great battle and had previously experienced unprecedented bloodbath. It was no longer suitable for any cultivators to remain here. Yes. Someone nodded next to him. The Crimson Dragon Emperor, who stood behind him, was deep in his thoughts. Futian had done a lot already. For the people of the lower worlds, he almost wiped out the cultivators from a superpower in the Dark World. If it were not for the arrival of the Infernal King at the last minute, these invaders would probably die right here. However, this time their opponent was the Dark World, and the strength of the original realm was still lesser. If their opponent unified and combined all the forces of the Dark World, it would not be something that the original realm or their ally could hope to contend. "The Heavenly Mandate Academy is still not strong enough," Futian said in a low voice, looking at the carnage that was left behind. He felt sorry that he was unable to detain the guilty party successfully. At present, the strength of the Heavenly Mandate Academy was not enough to protect the 3,000 realms of the Great Path and save it from catastrophes. This is not something that can be changed overnight. After all, the Dark Court itself had gotten involved, said the Sky River Great Elder, who was next to him. What's more, the young man called the Infernal King Uncle Master, so they must have some special relationship. If you want war, Heavenly Mandate Academy has to face the Dark World. Although the Academy is much stronger today, it has no way to compete with the Dark World and the power hidden within its shadows. Futian certainly understood that the Dark World was a force comparable to that of Divine Prefecture, and how strong was the Divine Prefecture? In the land of the 18 domains, the power of any one domain was already extraordinary enough. The sum of all 18 domains would be beyond even the wildest imagination. With the power of the Imperial Palace to boot, it was something terrifying. More recently, the Heavenly Mandate Academy's foundation was bolstered by the cultivators from Ziwei Segmentum. Otherwise, even if all the top forces in the original realm were to unite, the Heavenly Mandate Academy would not be taken seriously by anyone. If we want to contend with the Dark World, we have to join forces with the Divine Prefecture. Emperor Nan said, "It's just that each of the forces in the Divine Prefecture has their own ideas and issues, and they divided by many internal disputes. When many forces fought against you and tried to unite Divine Prefecture, we saw how difficult it was. But perhaps we can start with some of the forces and convince them to develop an alliance with Heavenly Mandate Academy first." "I understand." Yi Futian nodded. He understood what Emperor Nan meant. In that battle once upon a time, several major principalities stood by his side, such as Lord Luo from Outer Violet Heaven and the Sword Goddess from the Divine Palace of Fluttering Snow in the Donghua Domain. These forces had remained friendly with him after the battle and might enter the Starry Cultivation Court in Ziwei Segmentum by way of Heavenly Mandate Academy at any time. Princess Donghuang is already in the lower worlds. She should have the ability to clean up and consolidate the powers in the Divine Prefecture, said Yi Futian. The Divine Prefecture is a little different. Except for the Domain Chief's Manor of the 18 domains, the Imperial Palace does not directly control the top principalities of the Divine Prefecture. Unless there is a real chance for war, the Imperial Palace probably will not order them to do anything, Emperor Nan responded. That's true enough, Yi Futian responded. He had fallen into contemplation. In the land of the 18 domains, each domain chief's manor held great influence. However, when it came to forging a relationship with the Donghua domain and the Shangqing domain, the two domains he had personal experience with, his relationship with these two domain chiefs' manors was not excellent. The domain chief's manor in the Donghua domain wanted to get rid of him for a long time now, and the domain chief's manor in the Shangqing domain wanted to control him. Let's go back first, Yi Futian proposed, and everyone nodded in agreement. There was no sense for them to stay here after the cultivators of this world had left. Then, the group levitated in the air to depart. In the void, Yi Futian looked down to survey the destruction of the realm, which fed the murderous intent that was still blazing in his heart as his eyes drifted somewhere far away. Emperor Nan's words reminded him that he really must strengthen the power of the original realm. Yi Futian and the others returned to the Heavenly Mandate Academy, but the whole affair was far from over. The murderers who had ravaged the 3,000 realms of the Great Path were not apprehended and punished. Instead, they were brought back by the Dark World. This matter, of course, was not over. However, the battle that took place in the lower worlds had created quite a lot of waves. Cultivators in both Divine Prefecture and the Dark World noticed the news, and all the principalities were on high alert. Although Yi Futian did not fulfill his promises, at the very least, he was working hard on making them a reality. Had it not been for the Infernal King arriving in person from the Dark Court just in time, perhaps Yi Futian would have already killed those cultivators who brought terror to the lower worlds. It was said that they were the cultivators from the Infernal Clan, a peak principality of the Dark World. In that battle, a cultivator of the Tribulation level had his divine wheel of the Great Path crushed, which spoke volumes of the Heavenly Mandate Academy's resolve. As such, even though Yi Futian was not able to fulfill his promise for the time being, the cultivators from various forces in the Dark World would do well to remember the trouble they got themselves in and no longer dare to wreak havoc in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. In reality, how many of them dared to compare themselves with the Infernal Clan? Furthermore, if something happened to them, the Infernal King may not arrive in time to rescue them. After all, the Infernal King himself was a cultivator from the Infernal Clan. Likewise, the forces in the Divine Prefecture were aware of Yi Futian's determination. The Heavenly Mandate Academy, an ally, was actively fulfilling the promise made by Yi Futian to guard the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, not to control it. But for this, Yi Futian and the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy who had participated in that battle were greatly dissatisfied. They had witnessed the cruelty and bloodlust of their opponents. They had destroyed the realm and rendered it an inferno on earth. However, these killers left with their lives, which of course was much to their chagrin. In the Starry Sky world, there were many top cultivators at Ziwei the Great's cultivating court. In addition to the many powerful men from Heavenly Mandate Academy, some forces represented the Divine Prefecture. For example, the cultivators from the ancient royal family of Duan, the cultivators from the divine palace of fluttering snow, and the father and daughter duo of Lord Luo and Luo Su from outer violet heaven were all in attendance. Emperor Shi, thunder-punishing Sky Lord, the millet Emperor Li Changsheng, and the others had been comprehending the mystery of this starry sky all along to see if they could comprehend something from it. After all, the great emperor was an irresistible allure for any top-level cultivators. They hoped that in perceiving the meaning of the great emperor, they might have the opportunity to explore the mystery of a higher realm. At this time, Yi Futian and the others had returned as well. Although they were eager for revenge, Yi Futian understood the situation clearly. He knew the limit of his own strength. What could he use to attack the forces in the dark world? The strength of Heavenly Mandate Academy was far from enough. Emperor Yi. At this moment, in the starry sky, several beautiful ladies turned to look at Yi Futian. They were the three goddesses from the divine palace of fluttering snow, Qin Qing, Jiang Yueli, and Chu Hanqi. The sword goddess was not far in the sky above them. She was comprehending the will hidden within this starry sky world. The higher a person's realm, the more they could sense that unfathomable aura. Vaguely, they could perceive that this starry sky seemed to be transformed by the will of the gods in heaven. Although they were not able to detect anything solid, it did bring them some insights. For some lucky person, perhaps an epiphany could be experienced. Yi Futian nodded to the goddesses, then said to Jiang Yueli, Goddess Yueli has been in the 8th realm for many years, and is the existence closest to the peak of Renhuang. I wonder if this starry sky world could help the goddess take that one last step. I'm afraid it's a bit difficult than that. Jiang Yueli smiled gently while looking at Yi Futian. She said, this last step is also the most difficult step to take. Once this step is taken, one then embarks on the path to higher pursuits. However, under this starry sky, a mysterious and unpredictable power is perceived. I hope I could comprehend something from it. She then smiled and continued as if she had remembered something. Don't keep talking about me. When I saw Emperor Yi last, I never thought that your strength would grow so rapidly. Today, your combat effectiveness should be well above mine. Yi Futian's growth was indeed frightening. In her eyes, he was still a young genius talent who used to tag along with Li Changxing and Zhong Quan. However, now, he was stranger than her even if he was behind in realm. Goddess Yueli is overly modest. I am only in the 7th realm, quite a bit below the goddess still, Yi Futian replied. Next to them, Qin Qing and Chu Hanqi were both astounded by Yi Futian's growth. They knew that their senior sister was right. Yi Futian's combat effectiveness was already far above them. Now, other than the major figureheads, it's hard for anyone to compete with him. Once upon a time, he was chased and threatened by Ning Hua, who did everything to suppress him. But today, if the two were to meet again in battle, Ning Hua probably wouldn't be able to defeat Yi Futian. Whatever power that the goddesses want to perceive, I can urge the divine power of the starry sky so that the goddesses may perceive it more clearly, said Yi Futian. The three of them were speechless when they heard what he said. It seemed that Yi Futian was in full control of this starry sky world. At this time, the sword goddess, who was above in the sky, came over to Yi Futian and said, Is the will of Ziwei the Great still in this starry sky world? Yi Futian bowed slightly toward the sword goddess, extremely courteous, and replied, To answer Elder's question, the will of Ziwei the Great has been completely integrated with this starry sky world. As long as this starry sky world exists, then the will of the great emperor exists with it also, unless the starry sky world is vanquished somehow. However, what kind of tribulation would be able to vanquish this world? That would probably be something that requires the intervention from the great emperor. Here, he could leverage the starry sky in battle. Back then, even the original palace lord of Ziwei Imperial Palace was killed by him when he leveraged this power. Therefore, only the likes of the great emperor might stand a chance to destroy this starry sky. Anyone else would perish. The sword goddess nodded gently and understood everything. This was probably the reason why she had sensed a mysterious and unpredictable force in this starry sky. May I perceive it a little more clearly? The sword goddess asked. Of course, replied Yi Futian. Elder, please follow me. Well then. The sword goddess nodded as the two moved higher up. The face of Ziwei the Great was still there, and they appeared just under that massive visage. Yi Futian looked up at the starry sky, and the boundless sky suddenly brightened up a few degrees more. As the stars shone, the infinite divine glory of the stars showered upon the sword goddess, who was beside him. At this moment, the sword goddess raised her head to look at the starry sky. She stretched out her hand to touch the starlight, and that feeling became even stronger. Many cultivators now looked at them and marveled at Yi Futian's absolute control over this starry sky. A turn of his thought could attract the divine glory of the starry sky. Even the will of the great emperor could be summoned. After a long while, the sword goddess said to Yi Futian, "Thank you very much. Elder is being too formal." As Yi Futian moved his thoughts, the starry divine light gradually dissipated. He continued, "In this starry sky world, aside from these imperial stars, many stars contain some type of particular powers, suitable for many in the Renhuang realm to comprehend. However, this was not necessary for someone like yourself and your realm. However, if you agree, people from Divine Palace of Fluttering Snow may come here to cultivate and use this place as a place for cultivation." The sword goddess stared at Yi Futian, wondering if he meant for the cultivators of Divine Palace of Fluttering Snow to cultivate here. Once he saw the sharpness in her eyes, Yi Futian continued, "The Heavenly Mandate Academy could be an ally with Divine Palace of Fluttering Snow. Now that chaos reign over the original realm, sooner or later, it will spread to the Divine Prefecture and the rest of the world." The sword goddess understood Yi Futian's meaning instantly. While her eyes were still fastened on Yi Futian, she then nodded and said, "Very well." Clearly, she was willing to accept him as an ally. In fact, she was very optimistic about Yi Futian's future prospects. Chapter 2285, The Future. Yi Futian's potential was clear enough to the Divine Prefecture, but the cultivators from the Dark World and Empty Divine Realm, too, could see his potential and the future that awaited him. He possessed various kinds of imperial-level inheritances, all of which were lusted after by many enchanting geniuses, but none could obtain and control them except Yi Futian. Such a stunning figure would be another legend in the making. There was even a chance for him to prove the realm in the supremacy of the way. But today's Yi Futian was still in a period of development, and because he was limited to his own strength, he needed allies. The kind of alliance formed at a time like this would naturally be the most stable. Now, the sword goddess cultivation had reached a bottleneck. After the peak of Renhuang, the crossing of the divine tribulation follows, which would be a real challenge unimaginably difficult to accomplish. Perhaps, Yi Futian may be able to help her in the future. It was an opportunity for Yi Futian as well as for herself. "Thank you, Elder." Yi Futian bowed slightly to the sword goddess. The sword goddess had strong cultivation and was definitely a powerful ally. "I'll talk to the other elders," Yi Futian said again, and the sword goddess nodded. "Go," she said. Obviously, she understood that Yi Futian wanted to strengthen the power of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. The original realm used to be nothing, but since its unification under Yi Futian, with the power of Ziwei Segmentum behind him, the original realm was now a mighty force. As it continued to seek allies, the Heavenly Mandate Academy would become stronger still. Compared with other principalities in the Divine Prefecture, the Academy had already surpassed most of them. Even the Domain Chief's manor was no longer a competition unless it recruited some powerful cultivators who had survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path. Once such an existence had been produced by the Heavenly Mandate Academy, it would immediately become one of the most powerful principalities in the Divine Prefecture. Furthermore, this was not taking into consideration that teacher from Four Corner Village. If that teacher was included, then the Heavenly Mandate Academy could be regarded as a pinnacle principality. However, the teacher seemed to live outside of this world and had no interest in participating in secular affairs. Even though he made an appearance in that battle in the original realm, it was only for protecting Yi Futian, and he did not demonstrate his full strength. Yi Futian found the Duan family as well. Duan Tianxiong from the ancient royal family of Duan agreed readily enough. He was on Yi Futian's side in that battle and would never refuse such a request. In addition, he was already quite optimistic about Yi Futian when they were still in the Divine Prefecture. Later, He had witnessed the strength and the cultivation of the teacher from Four Corner Village, coupled with more and more revelations of Futian's enchanting talents. He would obviously never miss an opportunity to form such a powerful alliance with the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Finally, Futian came to Emperor Shi and bowed, saying, "Emperor Shi, I heard what you said just now. Do you want me to become an ally of the Academy as well?" Emperor Shi smiled and asked Futian. "I dare not." Futian shook his head and said, "My life was saved by the Elder, or I may very well have already perished in the battle at Donghua Domain. Many of our friends also owed the Elder for sheltering them in their time of needs, so I am in no position to demand anything from you. I only wanted to let you know that the Elder and cultivators from Turtle Deity Island are more than welcome to cultivate at Ziwei Imperial Palace anytime you wish. You can also go to Four Corner Village if you wish. There are some cultivation grounds in the village that may be suitable for Runhuang from Turtle Deity Island." Emperor Shi smiled and nodded. "If I have the opportunity, I would also like to visit the teacher in the village, but I don't know if he would see it as a disturbance to his cultivation. If Emperor Shi were to visit in person, the teacher should be willing to receive you," Futian replied. As for Emperor Shi and the Millet Emperor, Futian would not mention anything about the alliance. He had previously cultivated at Wangshan Watchtower, and he owed Emperor Shi his life. So, he wouldn't talk to them about the alliance because their relationships were different. Moreover, even if he didn't mention it, in time of real crisis, Emperor Shi, the Millet Emperor, and the others would not stand idly by. All of them were there in the last battle. "Futian." Emperor Shi looked at Futian and suddenly asked, "You now have comprehended the will of many great emperors, and your understanding is deeper than most, so the speed of your cultivation is much faster than of ordinary people. How many years will it take you to reach the peak of Runhuang?" "Within 20 years, said Futian. 20 years, Emperor Shi nodded. If he could really do it in 20 years, it would be considered extremely fast. With Futian's combat effectiveness, once he stepped into the peak of Renhuang, he would unlikely to find any opponents beneath cultivators of the tribulation level. How about divine tribulations? Emperor Shi asked again. Futian shook his head. I haven't even touched the peak of Runhuang. I have no idea how long it will be for me to cross the divine tribulations. Which level do you think you can reach? Emperor Shi looked at him and asked. When he was crossing the divine tribulation of the Great Path on Turtle Deity Island, it was fraught with danger. He felt that was already his limit, and his cultivation had reached its limit. He was quite satisfied with his own progress. Even if he stayed at this level, he would still be one of the top cultivators in the world. However, any cultivator would want to go to higher ground and see further, and he was just a few steps away from the highest point. But these couple of steps were insurmountable for the majority of the people. Futian revealed a look of contemplation as if recalling his youth. He thought of his adoptive father. After having experienced so much, the memories of the past were like a century ago and had become a little obscured with time. But some things had already been seared inside of him. He was destined for greatness, and he believed in his adoptive father and himself. He knew that in time, he would reach that point. Imperial, Futian looked at Emperor Shi. Emperor Shi looked at Futian's eyes and saw there was great confidence in the depth of those eyes. With this one word, how many in the world dared to say that they were capable of setting foot in that realm? Even those who had survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path dared not to lay so bold a claim. But Futian had bluntly stated that he could get there. Emperor Shi was touched in his heart. This youngster had such unshakable confidence in himself. I can't wait to see it, Emperor Shi said with a smile and some expectations. At this moment, an extremely powerful aura suddenly came upon them, causing Emperor Shi and Futian to end their conversation. They looked far into the distance and saw that a figure was bathing in an incomparable starry glow under the stars. Above the starry sky, an imperial star was emitting magnificent divine glory. As the imperial star's divine glory descended on that cultivator, terrible changes took place in him as his aura continued to become stronger. Uncle Tai. Futian had a surprised look on his face, as that cultivator who bathed in divine glory was Blind Tai. An indescribable golden glory burst from Blind Tai, and the shape of the divine hammer could be faintly made out, filled with shocking power. He was covered with golden armor, shining lights streaming all around him. An even more perfect aura now spread out from him. The cultivators in Four Corner Village were looking there as well, feeling quite emotional. Blind Tai was about to make a breakthrough. Chapter 2286, Blind Tai's Breakthrough. In the starry sky, many cultivators looked yonder, and their hearts were disturbed. Blind Tai was the first person Futian helped after he communicated with the Imperial Star, and he gave that Imperial Star to Blind Tai. Later, Blind Tai inherited the will of the Imperial Star. Even after everything was over, he often bathed in the Imperial Star to cultivate. Since then, he had not stopped cultivating. Now, he was about to break through the realm. He was already in Upper Renhuang in the 8th realm. This breakthrough meant that he would step onto the peak of Renhuang with a perfect great path. It was a leap that would allow him to become a major figure among the giants, shoulder to shoulder with cultivators from many top principalities in the Divine Prefecture. Back then, the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, who betrayed and blinded him, was also at the peak of Renhuang. After this step, his cultivation would be equivalent to that of the great elder, and Imoku would no longer be a contender. The breakthrough of Blind Tai also excited so many others. He was also the first person to break through the shackles of the realm in the starry sky world. The event itself held extraordinary significance. This, inevitably, encouraged the other cultivators to increase their own expectations. No one was happier to see this than Old Ma. When he was in the village, Blind Tai had the best relationship with him, and they were very close friends. Even Tai Tu and Xiao Ling were childhood sweethearts. No one understood better than him the pain that Blind Tai had endured over the years. Witnessing this day, Old Ma was happy for him, and a bright smile hovered around the corner of his eyes. Next to Old Ma were Feng Gai, Gu Huai, and some others. This guy was lucky beyond belief, Feng Gai said with a smile. It's not just luck. Old Ma said, he was betrayed once upon a time, and when he returned to the village, he almost lost his cultivation. After the teacher cured him, he began to recover his state of mind. For many years, he forged as a blacksmith, cultivating his mind and soul. After so many years, hatred is no longer his only focus. He came out of the village to protect Futian, and because of that, he received this opportunity and the achievement of this day. Perhaps this is all fate. Indeed. Feng Gai smiled and nodded. The luck was true enough, but everything was destined to be this way. Whether it was a coincidence or fate, Blind Tai would become another top cultivator in the village after Old Ma. After Blind Tai's breakthrough, apart from the teacher, Four Corner Village would have two giant figures. Not only did they need to keep up, but those youngsters need to grow up quickly. We have to work hard too, Feng Gai smiled and said to those who were around him. Blind Tai had now surpassed him. The person next to him smiled and nodded, looking towards Blind Tai. The divine glory of the Imperial Star rushed madly into his body as Blind Tai was suspended in midair. The armor on his body seemed to be getting brighter and more radiant. He now resembled a god of war. The aura from his body was constantly increasing in strength. The roar of the great path came from him. It was as if he was resonating with the starry sky. The divine light enveloped the boundless space, seemed to have turned it into a divine body of the great path, blooming with divine glory. This state lasted for quite a while and was accompanied by the endless radiance that lit up the starry sky. As the divine light on the Imperial Star was not there, even as Blind Tai was still suspended in the air, his body seemed to have calmed down. The divine light on his body retracted, though his entire body was still as bright as a divine body. He did it. Those cultivators in the starry sky shuddered. After a while, Blind Tai moved his body as his head raised slightly. Although he could not see, his perception had become much sharper. Congratulations. Many cultivators put their hands together and greeted Blind Tai, congratulating him on the breakthrough. He was the first person after Futian to break through the realm in the starry sky world. People from Four Corner Village arrived, and Old Ma smiled, saying, "Not bad. Blind Tai, now you are much better than us old guys," Feng Gai said with a smile. They were all from Four Corner Village, and they were happy for him. However, After the breakthrough, Blind Tai did not feel too much excitement and appeared rather calm. Uncle Tai, congratulations? Yi Futian smiled and greeted him as well. Blind Tai turned around, facing where Yi Futian's voice was coming from. Futian, thank you, he said. His words sounded a bit heavy, but they were from the heart. Yi Futian was sheltered by Four Corner Village, but he had done a lot for the village in return. Today, he was able to make a breakthrough because of Yi Futian. Uncle Tai, don't say that. We are like family. There is no need for thank yous. Yi Futian said with a smile, and Blind Tai nodded emphatically. That's right. The people in Four Corner Village were a family of their own. Although Yi Futian entered the village later, Four Corner Village had already accepted him fully and regarded him as a member of the village. After your breakthrough, Emoku is probably trembling right now, said Fonggu. The debt of yesteryears would be accounted for by Blind Tai sooner or later. Now that he had witnessed the peak of Renhuang, he would no doubt seek revenge at some point. How could Blind Tai possibly forget what Emoku and the Demon Cloud Clan did back then? A terrible coercive spirit came out of Blind Tai. Emoku was someone he must personally execute. The Demon Cloud Clan must be held accountable for what they did to Uncle Tai. However, Uncle Tai has just broken through, and the priority has to be stabilizing the realm. But the power on this Imperial Star can still be used. Yi Futian said with a smile. Blind Tai nodded. He hadn't lost himself because of the breakthrough. Although in this realm, killing Emoku was not a problem at all for him, the strength of the Great Elder of the Demon Cloud Clan was formidable. To kill him, his strength needed to be fortified some more. Uncle Fong, the Demon Cloud Clan should still be in the land of the original realm, right? Yi Futian asked Fong Gai, who was next to him. It's possible, Fong Gai nodded. Now that the original realm has gone through such a change, with all the principalities of the Divine Prefecture still there, the Demon Cloud Clan probably won't want to leave and may cultivate in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Yi Futian nodded. The power of Heavenly Mandate Academy alone could destroy the Demon Cloud Clan outright, but this was Uncle Tai's goal for a long time. He ought to have a chance to accomplish it himself, with them on the side to assist. Uncle Fong, please go back to the academy and have them find out the whereabouts of the Demon Cloud Clan. See if they can find out where they are currently, said Yi Futian. No problem, Fong Gai nodded. Now Yi Futian was acting even more like a leader in his demeanor. Fong Gai was delighted to see Yi Futian behave like this. This was the only way he could truly become the leader of a dominant force. The Heavenly Mandate Academy and Four Corner Village were all waiting for him to mature into his role. As formidable as he was, the teacher of the Four Corner Village did not care much for mundane affairs. Fong Gai could see that the village would eventually belong to Yi Futian in the future, and not him or Old Ma. Obviously, Old Ma had nothing to say about Yi Futian other than helping him, as he had done this since the beginning. Blind Tai's breakthrough would only be better for Yi Futian in the future. Coupled with the teacher's protection, some things did not have to be said out loud. Chapter 2287, Revenge. The Central Emperor Realm of the 9 Supreme Imperial Realms was still the realm with the most cultivators. Although the Central Emperor Realm was now under the rule of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, there were still many principalities from the Divine Prefecture that stayed in the Central Emperor Realm to cultivate. The Demon Cloud was also above the Central Emperor Realm. In an ancient city inside the Central Emperor Realm, the Great Elder of the Demon Cloud was cultivating. In recent days, they had been keeping a low profile. Not only them, but the principalities of the entire Divine Prefecture were now much quieter than before. No one was out looking for trouble. The memory of that battle was fresh in their minds. Not long ago, Yi Futian and the many cultivators under his command had almost wiped out several Renhuang cultivators from one of the top forces in the Dark World. Obviously, the principalities from Divine Prefecture were hesitant to cause any more trouble. Strictly speaking, the Demon Cloud had had some previous entanglements with Yi Futian. When he was comprehending the corpse of Shanjia, the Great Emperor in Shangqing Domain, Emoku was incredibly rude to Yi Futian. Later they had gone to Four Corner Village as well. Therefore, the Demon Cloud would not be causing any waves in the original realm. After all, the original realm was now Yi Futian's territory. However, at this time, the Great Elder, who was cultivating, suddenly frowned. and there was a slight sense of unease. It was as if he was agitated. Demonic clouds tumbled and tossed all around him as his brows knitted tightly together. Suddenly, his eyes opened, and those dark eyes stared into the distance. His expression changed. "Go," the great elder of the demon cloud said. He disappeared from where he was only to reappear in front of Emoku. With a wave of his hand, a group of his people was taken directly into the void. In an instant, his body rushed straight into the sky, descended high above the firmament. But at the same time, the sky suddenly seemed sealed shut as wisps of terrifying starry divine light descending in glory, turning into a starry light screen, shuttering that corner of the space. A figure appeared high above, and it was Runhuang Chun who had directly locked down this area. The great elder of the demon cloud stopped and hovered in midair, with Mizurika close behind him. Both of them were powerful cultivators from the demon cloud, and neither of them looked pleased. Runhuang Chun, the tribulation-level cultivator from Ziwei Segmentum, had blocked them in. Looking further ahead, a group of cultivators came in mighty formation. The man in the lead, clad in white and with a head of white hair, was Futian. Next to him was a plainly dressed middle-aged man. Though he could not see, there was an astonishing aura permeating from the man's body. Both the great elder of the demon cloud and Emoku could feel a faint sense of oppression. The man was none other than Blind Tai. Blind Tai couldn't see, but when he stood there, Emoku felt as if someone's stare had bored into his being. The feeling was so clear that he instinctively knew who it was. Even though the man didn't use his eyes, Emoku felt like the sensation was sharper than any stare. "You have broken through the realm." Emoku could feel the power from Blind Tai, and the expression on his face was priceless. A long time ago, he had severely injured Blind Tai and wounded his eyes. Not only did Blind Tai recover from such a mortal blow, but now, he had broken the shackles of the realm and set foot on the 9th realm to witness the perfect consummation of the Runhuang realm. This was the realm that he dreamed of, but now, Blind Tai had stepped into this realm before him. He was coming for him. He knew very well why the other man was here, to seek revenge for the past. The great elder of the demon cloud sensed it as well. He stared at Blind Tai and wondered just what kind of chance did he stumble upon to break the shackles of the realm so quickly and set foot on the peak of Runhuang. Was all of this possible because of the starry cultivation court? Blind Tai continued forward as the divine light of the great path burst out from him, and there was unbridled anger in this divine light. He faced Emoku and said, "The time of reckoning has come for what happened before." The moment his voice fell, a terrifying brilliance of the great path shot out from Blind Tai towards every crevice within the starry light screen. Like a god of war, his body seemed to be covered with a layer of golden armor. In the starry sky world, Blind Tai had obtained power from the inheritance of a great emperor. Although it was not from Ziwei the Great himself, this emperor was an imperial-level existence under the command of Ziwei the Great. An infinite and domineering god of war gradually condensed and emerged, appearing high above the sky. Like a true deity, a shocking power erupted from his body, enough to suppress and awe the world and everything inside it. The divine hammer in his hand showed a brilliant and incomparable glory that radiated outward, turning into rounds of light screens that wandered between heaven and earth. Blind Tai took a step forward and stood on high ground. His figure seemed to overlap with the figure of that heavenly deity. At this moment, Emoku, who had cultivated with Blind Tai once upon a time, felt an irresistible heavenly might. He stared at the man in the void and realized that this was no longer the brother of yesteryear, but a powerful existence at the peak of Runhuang. The great elder of Demon Cloud moved forward, blocking the place where the divine light had landed. The mighty demonic power on his body was roaring and howling with great menace. An overwhelming demonic shadow seemed to sweep into the sky, contending with that deity in the void, refusing to back down. But at this moment, wisps of spatial divine light descended, covering the area where he was at. Another figure appeared in front of the great elder of the Demon Cloud. It was Old Ma. Once, you blinded his eyes and robbed the divine methods of Four Corner Village. Now it's time to settle these transgressions. Let them resolve their differences between them, and don't worry, it's not your turn yet, Old Ma said lightly. Divine glory of the space unleashed madly, shrouding the vast void. The great elder of the demon cloud became alert and soared into the sky. However, at the same moment, Blind Tai made his move in the void. That heavenly being, holding the divine hammer of the protector, directly smashing down into the space below. Boom! A dull thud resounded between heaven and earth. A destructive might swept down, blasting below, suppressing an entire land to wipe out everything within it. Watch out! The great elder of the demon cloud shouted, but he was waylaid by Old Ma, unable to stop the attack from Blind Tai. Emoku roared, and a demonic double seemed to have materialized, blocking above him. But the instant the divine light fell, the demonic shadow was crushed and pulverized. In the next moment, the force fell on Emoku, penetrating his physical body and his spiritual soul. No! Emoku looked extremely fearful and let out a miserable roar. In the next moment, his body was shattered immediately. It vanished like ash and smoke as his spiritual soul also collapsed. Under the attack of that power, he had no way to stop it at all. Unable to even stop a single blow, he was directly obliterated. His old acquaintance didn't say another word and didn't waste any time. But he was not the only one. In the vicinity, under the sweep of the divine light, all the cultivators from the demon cloud were wiped out, as each and every one of them disappeared as if they had never existed in the first place. Where the divine light passed, none survived. All were punished by death. Emoku, the great elder of the demon cloud clan, broke through Old Ma's defenses and looked down at the figure disappearing into thin air. His eyes were bloodshot, and power rolled out from him in violent waves. Emoku had been slain like this. He had been killed without a chance to react. And it was not only Emoku. Other cultivators of the Demon Cloud clan had been killed by a single attack as well. They had all been slain. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan raised his head and looked up at Blind Tai. His deep, dark eyes were filled to the brim with murderous intent. However, Blind Tai ignored him. This hammer had been his obsession for so many years, but he felt very little joy or appreciation in his heart. He felt only calm. In the past, he and Emoku had been very close and had called each other brothers, but he never would have thought that he was plotting against him. It was only through the divine art of spying that he had saved his own life. For so many years, he had dreamed that he would kill Emoku and get revenge one day. Now, he had finally done it. He had resolved a matter that he had held close to his heart. Futian and the others looked at Blind Tai and seemed to sense his state of mind. There was no sorrow there, no joy. Perhaps it was a kind of relief. Fortune and misfortune go hand in hand. If it had not been for the things that had happened back then, he probably would not have returned to the village, and his state of mind would not have been purified. And now, he would not have had the chance to reach the 9th tier of the Renhuang Plain. Everything had been decided by fate. Emoku had wasted his talents scheming back then, doing all that he could. And yet, a single hammer had still frightened him to death. So what did all the time he had spent back then matter in the end? Blind Tai faced towards where the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was. He spat out his words, saying, "Uncle Ma, let me come over there." Old Ma and the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan were facing each other. He nodded when he heard Blind Tai's words, then moved off to the side, opening up a path to let him through. After he stepped aside, Blind Tai and the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan were facing each other. One was above the other people. Terrifying power of the great path was seeping out from both of them. "You were the one behind everything that happened back then. You made Emoku do it," said Blind Tai. His voice was still calm. It was as if he was not too concerned by all of this. It seemed like he just wanted to bring it to an end. Yes, the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan admitted openly. Of course they had been his orders. If it had not been for him, how could Emoku have done it? And how could he have succeeded? After all, Blind Tai had been no ordinary figure back then. Blind Tai said no more. He just nodded calmly. Neither of them liked to talk much. They obviously did not need to say very much either. This was a matter of life and death. One of the two of them would definitely die. But the one who would die would probably be the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. With the cultivators around him, he had no way to slay Blind Tai. So the outcome already seemed to be decided. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan would die. Actually, everyone understood that this made sense, including the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. When the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy arrived, along with a person at the tribulation level, how could he hope to kill Blind Tai? Back during the battle of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, you said that the people of the Divine Prefecture were slaughtering each other. But now, you led the Heavenly Mandate Academy in a battle against the Upper Divine Prefecture. Excellent, said the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan coldly. But as he said this, he already felt a little bit timid. They had not even started fighting, and he was already feeling timid. That was why he had said that. Otherwise, the slaughter would have started. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan understood his fate. This was a grudge between you and Four Corner Village. What did the Heavenly Mandate Academy have to do with it? Said Old Ma, sweeping his gaze over the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. Back then, you ruined his eyes, almost killing him, and stole the divine item of Four Corner Village. What is wrong with us coming to repay our debts now? Why did people from the Heavenly Mandate Academy get involved in this dispute with Four Corner Village? Asked the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, looking up in the curtain of stars in the sky. If it were not for that starry curtain, he would not have to make a last stand here. He could have escaped. Unfortunately for you, I am a member of the village. So, I naturally had the right to get involved in this affair, said Futian, looking at the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan from across the distance. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan looked back at him. Surging demonic power swept out from him, filling the entire vast area with his demonic aura. Whoosh! The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's body suddenly disappeared, transforming into a beam of demonic light that pierced through the air. Futian frowned. He could clearly feel a threatening will. Just as he was preparing to move, a figure descended beside him. It was Renhuang Qian, who was covered in starlight and transformed into a protective light curtain that wrapped around Futian. However, the beam of demonic light shot up into the sky, as if it had changed direction instantaneously, then rushed onward into the high distance. Clearly, the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's target was not Futian. That had been a diversion so that he could escape the area. His anger and his murderous intent had been real, but his desire to survive by leaving was even more real. So the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan had not sought revenge. He had sought to flee. Bang! A booming sound split the air as a black hammer appeared up in the air and smashed into the curtain of stars, making cracks. That was naturally the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's attack. He wanted to break open this forbidding power and flee the area that he was imprisoned in. But could he do it? The starlight that was upon Renhuang Qian flashed as he raised his scepter. Suddenly, brilliant starlight shot up straight into the air, repairing the places on the starlight curtain that had been damaged. In a flash, it was as good as new again. The repaired pieces seemed like they were a part of the original. If the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan tried to destroy it, it would be nearly impossible, as the difference in levels was too great. Just then, divine light burst forth, flowing between heaven and earth. A mighty divine force descended. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's expression changed as he looked over in that direction and saw that Blind Tai seemed to have melded with the body of a god. His body was covered in golden armor, and unimaginable divine power was radiating from him. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan could even sense a hint of the aura of a great emperor about him. Boom! A divine hammer fell from the sky, smashing into the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. The terrifying amount of pressure made the space around him freeze. And the elder himself was no different as he sensed this supernatural power. It seems that your combat ability now measures among the greatest, uncle. That is incredible, said Futian as he looked at the divine light. As soon as he said this, the hammer fell again, and monstrous figures appeared in the air. But they could not block this attack. There was another loud booming sound, and the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was sent flying backward. The space where he had been before seemed to split as the terrifying divine light raged through the air. Blind Tai seemed to have transformed into a god. He continued walking forward, swinging the hammer once again and slamming it into the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan as smoothly as flowing water. It was simple yet overpowering. He possessed limitless strength. Boom! Another dull boom rang out, and the air seemed to shatter as the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was sent flying once again, blood pouring from his mouth. It seemed like he had been crushed and had no more power to resist. Chapter 2289. Thoughts. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was no weakling. On the contrary, he was one of the strongest figures in the Shangqing domain. He dominated his generation. But at that moment, Blind Tai no longer seemed like a Runhuang who was close to breaking through to the 9th tier. In fact, he seemed like he had already done so many years ago and had developed his profound powers for a long time. What kind of power had the inheritance of the Imperial Star given him? Boom! Beams of burning divine radiance spread out from the figures of the gods of war up in the air, sweeping out through the heavens and the earth and covering a vast area. Many arms appeared up in the air. They were the arms of gods. The divine hammer of the protector appeared, and images of divine hammers appeared in all those arms right afterward. It seemed as if each hammer contained unimaginable power. They fell accompanied by divine light. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, the top cultivator of the Demon Cloud clan, could sense a deadly threat. He had a strange feeling. It was like he was not facing Blind Tai but an actual god. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan had swept away all before him and had never been in such desperate circumstances before. Someone younger than him had reached his level. Although he had just broken through to this level, he was still able to crush him. He had beaten him from head to toe and had made it so that he had not even been able to unleash his own power. What kind of humiliation was this? But the current humiliation was nothing. As of right now, his very life was in danger. The area was sealed off, and so he could not escape. He would truly be smashed to death by Blind Tai's hammers here. Boom! The hammers crashed down, and the heavens and the earth shook. It seemed as if everything would be destroyed. There came a great roaring sound from the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's body as the image of a demon god appeared behind him. Its many demonic arms reached up into the sky. The demonic handprints were incomparably powerful by themselves, and many of the arms held great black divine hammers. They moved away from him, smashing into the air and causing beams of black light to appear. The golden hammers fell, and the two forces collided together. Infinite divine light exploded outward when they clashed. It seemed as if the earth and the sky would split open. The demonic arms were all shattered wildly as the giant hammer went among them and destroyed everything. Bang! As this attack fell, it seemed as if everything was flattened. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was sent flying once again. His aura wavered, and his face had grown pale. His aura of the great path was no longer as sturdy as it had been. But the images of even more divine hammers appeared in the air, covering the sky in all directions. Blind Tai, who had transformed into a form like that of a god, was filled with limitless power. It was like the will of a great emperor had infused his strength. He had transformed into the master of this land. He waved his arms, and the hammers danced once again. His movements were still simple and graceful, but the divine power that burst forth in the air was still enough to shock even the greatest of figures. Countless beams of light all fell towards the same place. The figure of the demonic god tried to block them, but as the light fell, the hammers smashed down as well. Suddenly, the demonic figure split open and shattered. The hammers continued downward and smashed into the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's body. He was an incredibly powerful figure, and his flesh had already become the way. So even suffering a direct hit from these hammers was not enough to instantly kill him. But his body shook violently, and the hammers kept on coming, slamming into him over and over again. His expression kept changing. It was as if he was full of regret. Then, divine light pierced his body. As the countless beams of light shot through him, the great elder's body started to disintegrate until he was destroyed. He had been killed on the spot. After the great elder had been slain, everything seemed to become calm. The violent atmosphere dissipated, and everything was like it had been before. Blind Tai stood calmly up in the sky. He still felt none of the pleasure of his great vengeance. On the outside, he looked extremely calm. After a period of silence, he turned and walked calmly over to Futian's side, as if none of what had just transpired had happened. "Congratulations, Uncle Tai," said Futian with a slight smile. Now, Blind Tai would be able to let go of his heart's obsession. He, the people of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, and the people of Four Corner Village had all watched this battle but had not interfered. They had let Blind Tai achieve his own vengeance. And he had succeeded. He had used his overwhelming strength to slaughter the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, Imoku, and more, resolving his grudge from many years ago. Old Ma and the others came over, patting Blind Tai on the shoulder. They had been greatly shocked by this battle as well. Even Old Ma had not been able to deal with the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, but Blind Tai had crushed him all by himself. Moreover, the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan had had no power to resist him. He had been overpowered and destroyed. From this, it could be seen that Blind Tai had now become much more powerful than Old Ma. It looked like the inheritance of the Imperial Star was far from ordinary. It had given Blind Tai combat abilities beyond those of people on his level. He had been able to slay the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, who had been at the peak of the Renhuang Plain for many years. At that moment, the curtain of starlight dissipated. Many cultivators appeared in different places up in the air. They had come from different camps. All of them were top figures from the Divine Prefecture. After sensing the battle that was taking place here, the top figures from the Central Imperial Realm had come to observe the battle. All of them had been shocked by what happened. Blind Tai of Four Corner Village had broken through to the next level. Not only had he done that, but he had killed the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan right out. It seemed like the inheritance of the Imperial Star had given him much. Unfortunately, the cultivation court of Great Emperor Ziwei was already under Futian's control. They could not go there to cultivate. Futian and the others transformed into beams of light and soon disappeared. But the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture did not leave. Instead, they watched down below. One of the top powers of the Shangqing domain had been destroyed like this and would never return. A group of people was gathering together up in the sky. These were cultivators from the Shangqing domain, including Emperor Zhoumu, the vice chief. In addition, cultivators from the Nanhai family were there too. The Demon Cloud clan had been a top force of the Shangqing domain, and yet it had been destroyed like this. The shock that this gave them was very fierce indeed. Moreover, the one who had destroyed them was Blind Tai of Four Corner Village, and many of the forces of the Shangqing domain had conflicts with Four Corner Village. They had once gone and laid siege to it until they were forced to flee by the master. The cultivators of the Nanhai family were even more conflicted. Now, Futian had led Blind Tai and the others to destroy the Demon Cloud clan. Afterward, would he want to destroy them as well? A group of people from the Muyun family was there as well. They had seen Blind Tai become an even more powerful figure and slay the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. It was obvious how they felt about this. Muyun Lan had once fought Blind Tai in the Shangqing domain, and their powers had been evenly matched. But now, if Muyun Lan stood before Blind Tai, he would not even be able to withstand a single hammer blow. Chapter 2290, Visitors. After slaying the great elder of Demon Cloud, Futian and the others returned to the Heavenly Mandate Academy, but the incident had caused quite a stir in the original realm. Many top figures from the Central Emperor realm had paid close attention to the battle, and the news spread rapidly. In Heavenly Mandate Academy, Futian and the others had just returned. Before they had a chance to depart to the Ziwei segmentum, they were informed that some visitors had arrived to request a meeting with him. In front of the main hall, Futian scanned with his divine consciousness and saw a group of people outside the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Seeing their presence, Futian frowned. Likewise, Old Ma and Blind Tai also raised their eyebrows. Then, Old Ma huffed contemptuously and said, "What are they doing here? Since they are here already, tell them to come in." Futian didn't seem to care and gave the instruction casually. Immediately, someone went to carry out the order. After a while, someone came around, and Futian saw that the person was Muyun Long. Behind him was Mu Yunlan, but he appeared unenthusiastic. Both of his hands were folded behind him as he looked toward Futian and blind Tai. His expression appeared somewhat conflicted. "How dare you show your faces here?" Feng Gai said sarcastically, looking at Mu Yunlong. All the discords in the past were caused by Mu Yunlong, otherwise they would still be cultivating in the village, and there would be no subsequent events. Mu Yunlong was full of ambition, wanting to take over the village, even having the idea to replace the teacher. But now, that ambition appeared rather ludicrous. Just Mu Yunlong alone wanted to replace the teacher. The teacher was the totem of the village, its true spiritual leader. As long as he was there, for Corner Village would always be what it always had been, and no one would challenge it. In fact, Mu Yunlong was very embarrassed as well, but he came despite this. He had seen the teacher descended on the land of the original realm and took control of Shunjia, the great emperor, erupting with shocking combat power. When some had guessed that the teacher was in the imperial realm, he was greatly shocked and then taken over by endless regrets. It was ridiculous that they rebelled against Four Corner Village and left, and even more ridiculous that he had once wanted to replace the teacher in the village. Now, they had witnessed Blind Tai's breakthrough and ascension to the peak of Renhuang. Mu Yunlong's cultivation was far deeper than Blind Tai's. Even his eldest, Mu Yunlan, whose cultivation was not beneath that of Blind Tai. In the battle at the Shangqing domain, though he was unable to suppress Blind Tai, the score was pretty even. However, the gap had been widened now. Understandably, he was agitated by how things turned out. If they were still cultivating in the village, the teacher and the imperial star in the starry sky world could be used to communicate and comprehend. But not only did they leave the village, but they had also created this grudge with Futian. The death of the great elder of the demon cloud was a warning to them. Therefore, this trip at this time was inevitable. What if Futian were to seek revenge from them in the future? With the strength that Heavenly Mandate Academy possessed today, even the Nanhai family could ill afford its ire. With Futian's personality, it was a real possibility that he would eventually end up at their front door, seeking revenge. What happened at the beginning was indeed my fault, I admit it. However, we are all people from the village and belong to the same line. After all, no one can dispute this. Old Ma, for the sake of our friendship these many years, would you allow me to ask for forgiveness from the teacher? I am willing to return to the village to cultivate, Mu Yunlong pleaded, seeking to bolster his request with their relationship once upon a time. However, everyone knew where he was coming from. It was only to seek better resources to cultivate. In addition, he may be scared of Futian at this moment, fearing his tendency to settle old scores. You left when you wanted to, and now you are asking to come back because you wanted to. What kind of place do you think our village is? Old Ma said quite sarcastically. At that time, Mu Yunlong and the others had wanted to take Futian down and had attacked him. Mu Yunlong's youngest, Mu Yunshu, was even more outrageous. He had attempted to deal fatal blows to Blind Tai's son, Tai Tu, without mercy. And Mu Yunlan himself was a son-in-law of the Nanhai family. Now, he wanted to return to the village. I know we have offended, but we are in the same line after all. If the teacher wants to punish us, we will accept it. In the future, we are willing to listen to all of you, no matter what. Mu Yunlong still bowed his head and admitted his past guilt. He had put down his dignity to be allowed to return to the village. Futian looked at Mu Yunlan behind him and saw that he was standing quietly without saying a word. Obviously, it was not his idea to come and own up their guilt, but that he was dragged here by Mu Yunlong. Otherwise, Mu Yunlan's arrogant nature would never allow him to come here and bow his head like this. After all, even lowering their stance was no guarantee of the results. As if he had detected Futian's gaze, Mu Yunlan looked at him as well and saw that in the depth of Futian's eyes, there was extreme tranquility without the slightest emotion in those eyes of his. It was as if he cared not at all for his existence. The look was familiar enough. Once, this was exactly how he looked at Futian. It was an indifferent and careless look. Now, it was Futian who regarded him thusly. Now in Futian's eyes, Mu Yunlan was nothing. Aside from the power controlled in Futian's hands, Futian's own combat effectiveness was so strong that Mu Yunlan might not be able to contend with him. Futian's sight slowly settled on Mu Yunlong. and he said, "First, bring Muyun Shu and abolish his cultivation. Show me the sincerity of the Muyun clan." Muyun Long's eyes sharpened as the expression on his face changed suddenly. Not just him, but Muyun Long behind him also regarded Yi Futian with a cold expression. Did he ask them to abolish Muyun Shu's cultivation? How could they possibly agree to it? "Emperor Yi, we are sincerely sorry for what had transpired." "You needn't be so harsh," Muyun Long replied. "I am being quite sincere." Yi Futian looked at Muyun Long. "I won't mention what you did back then, but your youngest, Muyun Shu, being so cruel and plotting at such a tender age, how could we let him back in the village to cultivate without abolishing his cultivation? You don't really think we wanted to raise another you, did you?" Yi Futian's voice was calm enough, but the indifference in his words was very obvious. Clearly, it was impossible. "Sorry to have bothered you," Muyun Long said. He turned to leave. "If there is a chance in the future, I will return the visit to the Muyun clan," Yi Futian said casually, causing Muyun Long to stop abruptly. After pausing for a few moments, he started moving again to leave, this time with some heaviness in his footsteps. What Yi Futian said was rather potent with meaning and significance. After Muyun Long left, someone came to report again. "Many forces from the Divine Prefecture are outside asking to be received." Yi Futian's divine consciousness radiated outside of the Heavenly Mandate Academy and saw the arrival of many top forces, which surprised him a little. It seemed that this was all caused by that battle. He never expected Uncle Tai's breakthrough would have such an impact on the top forces in the Divine Prefecture. It appeared that they had some thoughts of their own about this turn of events. After all, it was tough to produce a figure at the giant level. This was already a cultivator standing at the top in Divine Prefecture. Chapter 2291. For the Divine Prefecture, "Everyone welcome," Yi Futian said loudly. His voice reverberated throughout the space. Outside the Heavenly Mandate Academy, several cultivators from various top forces gradually made their way into the academy after they heard his words. They gathered at the main hall. Yi Futian scanned the crowd. There were quite a few familiar faces from some forces of the Shangqing domain. Zhou Muhuang, the vice chief of Domain Chief's Manor, and Princess Zhou Lingxi had come too. Zhou Muhuang looked at Yi Futian, who stood in front of the main hall. He felt that he was fortune's fool. In the past, he intended to recruit Yi Futian when the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor gathered all the talented cultivators. He wanted to keep Yi Futian under the control of the Domain Chief's Manor, so that Yi Futian would be under his command. At that time, Yi Futian was but a Run Huang with extraordinary talent. However, judging from the current situation, Yi Futian's status was no longer beneath his status as the vice chief of the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor. Furthermore, Yi Futian was superior to him. After all, the manor itself was the only force under the direct command of the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor. On the other hand, the Heavenly Mandate Academy, led by Yi Futian, controlled all the forces in the original realm. The Ziwei segmentum was under his command too. Besides that, all the cultivators from Four Corner Village were willing to follow him. Combining all these forces, it was obvious that Yi Futian was leading a superpower. Moreover, Yi Futian was supported by the mysterious master. Hence, Yi Futian's current status was above that of Zhou Muhuang. When Zhou Muhuang visited the Heavenly Mandate Academy, he needed to wait for the host's approval before he could pay his tribute. Aside from him, all the cultivators from the various top forces of the Divine Prefecture also needed to wait for the approval of Yi Futian to enter the academy this time. No one dared to barge into the place without an invitation. Not long ago, Yi Futian and his team killed many powerful cultivators from the Demon Cloud, including Imoku and the Great Elder of the clan. Even Zhou Muhuang, the ruler of Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor, did not dare to comment much on this matter. Now, most likely, nobody in the Divine Prefecture could command Yi Futian. Not to mention that the matter involved personal vengeance. Outsiders had no stance in the vendetta between the Demon Cloud and Blind Tai. All of you have traveled far to visit the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Please excuse me for not welcoming all of you sooner, Yi Futian said to everyone while bowing slightly. He was polite, and he spoke humbly. However, his humble speech also made people feel distant. Zhou Lingxi, who stood beside Zhou Muhuang, lamented internally. Back then, the domain chief's manor intended to use her to keep Yi Futian around. However, he did not show the slightest interest in her at all. If the domain chief's manor had been more sincere in making friends with Yi Futian, then they would have at least been on good terms with him now. If that were the case, it would most likely not be a problem for their manor to want to cultivate in the starry cultivation court. After all, the ancient royal family of Duan was already cultivating there at the moment. Renhuangyi, you're too kind. We've come to ask for a favor, said a top figure. Their attitude toward Yi Futian now had changed completely. Even the giant-level cultivators spoke courteously and dared not act imprudently. After all, Yi Futian now possessed the power to determine whether the giant-level figures lived or died. Oh! Yi Futian raised his brows slightly and asked, what matter is Senior referring to? He was clearly asking an obvious question. Everyone knew that Yi Futian was well aware of their purpose for coming here. We wish to have access to the starry cultivation court for cultivation, said the giant-level figure. Right now, Renhuangyi has taken charge of the starry cultivation court and can borrow the power of the will of the great emperor. If you would allow the cultivators from the divine prefecture to cultivate there, the overall abilities of the divine prefecture would improve. Your contribution would be significant. Of course, we'll not use the starry cultivation court for free. We will pay an equivalent price in exchange for such access. Renhuangyi can also name a price. How about it? Yi Futian smiled at the other party and said, Senior, have you opened up the holy land of cultivation of your clan or force to the other forces from the outside world and the divine prefecture? I am sure that the members of the other forces will also be willing to pay to do so. Currently, the starry cultivation court was under his control. It was considered to be his personal holy land of cultivation. Why would he allow others to cultivate in it? Yi Futian was not so selfless. He had also allowed all the forces to use the starry cultivation court back during the battle of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. As long as the forces were willing to join the battle and fight for the Heavenly Mandate Academy, they would be permitted to cultivate there at any time. However, none of the major forces were willing to stand out for them. Conversely, they were greedily eyeing the starry cultivation court. All of them wanted to add insult to injury. By killing him and destroying the Heavenly Mandate Academy, they would naturally obtain the teachings of Great Emperor Ziwei and the starry cultivation court. Now that the situation had changed, they wanted permission to cultivate in the starry cultivation court. Wasn't this too easy? The giant-level figure continued, I understand where Renhuangyi is coming from. This is indeed a great request. All of us are part of the divine prefecture. Now that turmoil is imminent, improving the abilities of the forces of the divine prefecture to combat the invasion of outside forces will be considered a great contribution by Renhuangyi. Moreover, all of us are willing to pay a high price in exchange for such access. The other members also nodded in agreement. In the future, if Renhuangyi requires any assistance, you will only need to issue the command. The cultivators of the various forces of the divine prefecture will willingly provide aid. Wouldn't that be perfect? Someone else added, promising these things. However, if such a time truly came, whether or not the other party would lend their aid remained unclear. Yi Futian smiled. Were they pressuring him to act for the greater good of the divine prefecture? All right, replied Yi Futian. When he thought about this, he actually nodded his head and agreed. This stunned the various cultivators. Some of them gave Yi Futian suspicious looks. Yi Futian seemed to have agreed too easily. Although this was their original goal, they never imagined that Yi Futian would agree so readily. Things were likely not as they seemed. As expected, Yi Futian looked at them with a smile and continued saying, Since everyone has requested it, I will naturally not have any objection against the suggestion. Everything is for the sake of the divine prefecture. However, the original realm is also part of the divine prefecture. Since everyone has the same goal in mind, I'm sure all of you have heard of what happened recently. A force from the dark world is committing massacres in the original realm. They have lost their humanity. I am determined to cast the dark world out of the original realm. Are seniors willing to follow me and wage war against the dark world? After Yi Futian said that, he scanned the crowd and concluded, This is for the greater good of the divine prefecture. The cultivators were stunned when they heard Yi Futian's words. Then, all of them fell silent. For the greater good of the divine prefecture, they were definitely not righteous. They were merely serving their own interests. The forces of the Dark World were very powerful. Currently, more and more top forces from the Dark World were descending upon the original realm. If the cultivators immediately declared war on them, it would be a matter of life or death. It would no longer be as simple as paying a high fee. The price might be their own lives. Hence, no one dared to agree to this so easily. After all, from the last battle, they knew that the Dark Court was cautious of Futian. If the forces from the Divine Prefecture were to go on the initiative and declare war, the cultivators of the Dark World would most likely deal with them first. What's the matter? The forces of the Dark World are so cruel. Seniors, don't all of you want to expel them from our lands? Futian continued pressuring them. His manner was imposing. Zhou Muhuang clearly sensed that the current Futian was different from what he was before. In the past, even though Futian had extraordinary talents, he was but a Run Huang who had exceptional combat abilities in the Divine Prefecture. There were plenty of top forces in the Divine Prefecture. Therefore, no matter how monstrous he was still insignificant. However, it was different now. Futian was no longer just an extraordinary talent himself. His background and the forces he commanded were all among the finest. There were not many forces in the Divine Prefecture who could afford to offend him. Hence, his entire temperament naturally seemed different. Even among the 18 domain chief manners, more than half of them did not command forces as powerful as those below Futian. Only the domain chief manners with chiefs who had survived the second stage of a divine tribulation dared to claim that they could suppress Futian and the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Even then, for Corner Village still had a mysterious master to hold down the fort. With such a background, even against all the top forces of the Divine Prefecture, Futian's manner was still imposing. Nevertheless, the crowd knew that Futian had sought the aid of the forces of the Divine Prefecture during the battle of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Unfortunately, not many of them stood out to lend him aid. Many forces had even tried to kick him when he was down. Under such circumstances, they still came here seeking Futian for permission to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court. He would naturally not act kindly towards them. Someone said, "Of course, we want to cast the forces of the Dark World out, too." However, the forces of the Dark World are different from the forces in the Divine Prefecture. They are very united. The Dark Court rules over all the forces in the Dark World directly. Recently, more and more top forces from the Dark World have arrived in the original realm. Their lineup is as powerful as that of the Divine Prefecture. It is not that simple to want to chase them out. Before we declare war against them, why don't we unite the forces in the Divine Prefecture and improve our abilities by cultivating in the Starry Cultivation Court first? Futian glanced at the person who had spoken. The other party's words sounded reasonable, but in the end, he also wanted to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court first. No one could guarantee what would happen after these cultivators gained the right to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court. "I disagree," Futian refuted. "Pardon me for speaking my mind frankly. Last time, when the Heavenly Mandate Academy was attacked, many forces from the Divine Prefecture were also waiting for the chance to join in the attack against me. Most likely, many of you wanted to kill me. I can't tell for sure what everyone is thinking. If I allow all of you to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court, but you end up becoming my enemies, wouldn't I be foolish for inviting trouble upon myself? Since seniors are interested in allying with me, then you should show some sincerity first." Futian's speech caused the cultivators to fall silent. From the looks of it, Futian was firm with his decision. If they wanted to gain access to the Starry Cultivation Court for cultivating, they had to first join forces with him to eradicate the forces of the Dark World lurking in the original realm. Otherwise, he would not agree to their request. Last time, when all the forces went to visit Ziwei Imperial Palace in the Ziwei Segmentum together, the latter had no choice but to allow them to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court. However, it was different now with Futian in charge. They would most likely be unable to force him into accepting their request. It was because Master served as a deterrent. "Since that's the case, we'll further consider your suggestion," said someone. Clearly, the person thought that the price they had to pay to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court was too high. It was not worth it. Hence, the person was giving up. Right at the moment, quite a lot of people arrived. They actually traversed the space and entered into the Heavenly Mandate Academy directly. Naturally, this caused Futian and the cultivators of the academy to frown. The incomers had serious expressions on their faces. They went straight to their respective forces and reported something to their seniors using transmitted thoughts. It seemed like something had happened. Someone also landed beside Futian and told him something using transmitted thoughts. The news caused Futian to narrow his eyes. One by one, the cultivators from the various top forces of the Divine Prefecture saluted their fists and said, "Farewell." After they said this, they immediately flew up to the sky and left. What happened? Lord Taishian revealed a worried expression. The person who just communicated with Futian through transmitted thoughts was a cultivator from Ziwei Imperial Palace. From the looks of it, something had happened. Otherwise, the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture would not have left together. Most likely, they had also received the same news. Many people looked at Futian. Futian said, "In a void space outside of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, someone discovered a relic. According to speculation, it is a very ancient relic." The eyes of the cultivators narrowed when they heard Futian's words. No wonder the visitors from the Divine Prefecture left in a hurry. Clearly, they had received the same news and decided to check out the relic immediately. The original realm was a void space formed after the collapse of the Heavenly Path. It was also called the Void Realm. However, it also became a unique place that consisted of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path and countless void spaces. Nobody knew what lay in these void spaces. Many years ago, people had searched through and plundered the void spaces. Nevertheless, there was bound to be something that they missed. For example, all 9 supreme realms had their secrets. The Ziwei segmentum, which was sealed by Great Emperor Ziwei, was hidden in the Ziwei realm. The original realm had recently undergone a complete transformation. More and more changes were occurring. Hence, the appearance of an ancient relic didn't seem bizarre. "Do you have the coordinates of the relic?" someone asked. The void space outside of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path was vast and endless. The Ziwei segmentum, for example, was very far from the 9 realms. Hence, they had to build a powerful grand teleportation matrix to connect the 2 places. The cultivator from Ziwei Imperial Palace replied, "Yes. The relic was discovered by some mighty cultivators from the top forces of the Divine Prefecture. Besides that, it was discovered because it was approaching the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Right now, most likely, a lot of people have caught news of its existence. The forces from the Divine Prefecture that visited the Heavenly Mandate Academy just now were only part of those who had come to the original realm. Many of them are making their way to the relic now." "A moving relic?" Futian nodded and said, "Let's go and have a look." After he said this, the group flew up to the sky right away. The cultivator from Ziwei Imperial Palace led the way, and they left the Heavenly Mandate realm. They traveled towards a specific direction in the void. After a while, they had left the region where the 9 supreme realms were. As they progressed forward in the void space, Futian and his group could gradually sense an unknown power. The power seemed to contain a faint might. It was as though heavenly might was transmitted across space to where they were. The power became clearer as they approached the space. Even the giant-level figures could feel a super strong pressure acting on them. "This might," exclaimed Lord Taishian. This unknown might gave off the same vibe as when they were cultivating in the starry cultivation court in the Ziwei segmentum. Could it be that this was yet another ancient relic left by a great emperor? As they moved upwards, they discovered that a deep and scary-looking crack had appeared in the sky. A frightening storm formed. The crack was like a terrifying object that would leave marks in the space when it moved. Looking past the crack into the distance, one could faintly sense an extremely menacing power was moving. As expected, it was a moving ancient relic, and it was approaching the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. What exactly was it? It gave off such frightening pressure. Chapter 2293, Relic of a Great Emperor. Let's go. The cultivators moved towards the direction where the might was emanating from. They traveled across space at an astonishing speed. As they approached the source of the might, They could sense the terrifying might intensifying. Rumbling sounds could faintly be heard in the void space. The massive crack remained in the void as they ventured past it. As various cultivators moved closer and closer to the source of the might, they even discovered dark fissures. "It's over there!" exclaimed someone as they looked ahead in the direction where the terrifying aura was. All the cultivators narrowed their eyes. They saw a gigantic creature moving. There seemed to be a city built on top of the creature's back. It was moving in a specific direction. Everywhere it passed, the space was ripped apart, and dark fissures were formed. When the dark fissures closed up, they became massive cracks. Right at this moment, Futian and his group saw an astonishing divine light of the great path light up in front of the moving creature. There was more than one beam of light. Dazzling divine lights of the great path were ignited simultaneously in different directions. Then, all the lights pounced onto the gigantic creature, attempting to stop it from moving. Frightening rumbles thundered. The divine lights, which blocked in front of the enormous creature, were shattered into dust. The attack of the cultivators could not stop the creature from advancing. This was not the first time the cultivators tried to stop the creature in its tracks. They had been trying different techniques along the way, but all their attempts were futile. It was unstoppable. "Let's give up on making it stop," someone at the front suggested. The cultivators realized that making the creature stop was an impossible mission. The rest nodded in agreement. Then, the cultivators stepped up and headed towards the city on top of the creature. Since it was impossible to intercept the creature from advancing, they could only get on it to explore the city on its back while it was still moving. Futian and the rest of the cultivators from various forces of the Divine Prefecture also arrived where the creature was. Aside from them, the forces of the Dark World and the Empty Divine Realm also caught news of this relic, and they gradually appeared from various directions. All their gazes were fixed on the gigantic moving creature. Their hearts trembled violently. The moving creature was a black turtle. With high speed, Futian and his group caught up with the creature. They noticed that this creature carrying a city on its back was actually an enormous demonic beast. It was a black turtle. However, its head took the shape of a dragon head. "It's a dragon turtle, but it seems to be dead. It has no aura," commented Renhuang Chun, who was beside Futian. Futian also noticed that the creature was a colossal dragon turtle. However, its body was pitch black, with no signs of life. A mysterious power must be sustaining it for it to be able to keep moving. Not only was this black turtle dead, but the city it carried on its back was also filled with the aura of death. There was no sign of life. However, one could still sense a baffling might emanating from the city. It was an extremely domineering might. Futian had witnessed the abilities of many great emperor-level cultivators and experienced firsthand the pressure contained within their wills. He was certain that the pressure before him was from the will of a great emperor right now. That meant to say that the moving fortress was a relic left behind by a great emperor. The will of the great emperor might still be lingering in the city. Many other cultivators naturally shared the same speculation as Futian. However, the dragon turtle emanated a mysterious pressure as it advanced while tearing apart the space. There was a solemn pressure acting on the crowd, making it hard for them to breathe. Right at this moment, the dragon turtle suddenly let out a dull groan. It sounded like a sorrowful wail. The reverberation of the sound caused the blood and chi of the cultivators to churn. An intense sadness welled up in their chests. It was as though they could sense the despair in the voice of the dragon turtle. What kind of emotion was that? The hearts of the cultivators trembled violently. This dragon turtle was most likely a black turtle. Such a domineering sacred beast actually let out a groan which contained such an immense sorrow after it had died. What had actually happened before it died? Buzz. Endless starlight lit up in the heavens and earth, transforming into a starry shroud. The shroud of starlight popped up out of thin air. It was created by Renhuang Chun. He wanted to give it a try and see whether he could block the dragon turtle from advancing. The body of the dragon turtle crashed head onto the shroud of starlight. Kacha! A shattering sound rang. Without any suspense, the shroud of starlight was shattered into dust. The dragon turtle continued to move forward as though it had not encountered any hindrance. It seemed as though there was no power great enough to stop its will from advancing. Was it the will of the dragon turtle itself? It looks like we don't need to waste our energy on making it stop. It's unstoppable, concluded Renhuang Chun, who was beside Yi Futian. Renhuang Chun had only tried once, and he was certain about the creature's capability. Yi Futian nodded in agreement. With a flash, he dashed towards the ancient city on the dragon turtle's back. Yi Futian and his group landed on a ruin. They were surrounded by dilapidated pillars and crumbling walls. There was not an area that was in good shape. They could sense a much stronger might now that they were standing on the ruin. Yi Futian had a slight problem breathing normally when pressured by this might. The divine light of the great path flowed around his body, and his emperor's light twinkled, slowly withstanding the mysterious might. After he stabilized himself, his will swept out and scanned the surroundings. What's that? As they looked ahead at the center of the ruin, they saw a tall pile. It was like a tower. The mysterious might emanated from it. All the cultivators from various forces were making their way towards the tall pile. There seemed to be a weak light glowing inside the tower-shaped object. As the cultivators approached it, some of them launched attacks against it. The tower-shaped object shook when the intense attacks landed on it. However, it was not destroyed and still stood firmly. Yet another grating groan of sorrow sounded. The dragon turtle wailed again. The vibration of the sound caused the cultivators to feel restless. Weak light continued to glow on the tower-shaped object, further provoking the curiosity of the cultivators. "Let's attack together," suggested someone. Immediately, from various directions, the cultivators worked together to gather a frightening amount of power of the great path. Back down first, Renhuang Chan instructed Yi Futian. Renhuang Chan stood in front of the group, and a defensive light shroud was activated. At the same time, the cultivators once again launched an aggressive attack towards the tower-shaped object. This time, it finally shook violently when many attacks landed on it at the same time. Unable to withstand the vibrations, boulders started falling from the tower. It seemed as though it would crumble at any moment. Many gazes were fixed on the tower. The eyes of some cultivators narrowed in shock when the boulders fell. "Those are," exclaimed someone. After the boulders fell, there were actually human bodies stacked in the tower-shaped object. However, the bodies showed no signs of life. They were corpses. All the bodies in the tower seemed as though they had been here for an eternity. "This is a grave," someone said in a low voice as they looked at the tower-shaped object. Their hearts trembled intensely. A black turtle was moving around in the void space, bearing a grave on its back. Whose grave was it? Who was buried inside? Chapter 2294, Awakened Corpse. Terrifying storms continued to blow past the cultivators. When the black turtle tore apart space, fissures formed, and destructive storms continually surged out from them. The howling storms affected the cultivators. This was the reason why they attempted to stop the dragon turtle from moving just now. Unfortunately, up until now, no one was successful in making it stop. It was as though it had been moving in the vast void space since time immemorial. All the cultivators were shrouded with the divine light of the great path. Their gazes were fixed on the corpses in front of them. Many of the dead bodies were deformed. Some only had tiny sections left. One could imagine the intensity of the battle they were involved in before they perished here. Even on this day, countless years after the battle, the dead black turtle was still wandering in space aimlessly with these dead bodies on its back. Nobody knew where this black turtle was heading. Everyone felt uncomfortable as they were exposed to the destructive storms. Despite that, they still launched attack after attack at the tower-shaped grave. They were interested in opening up the grave and exploring the secrets hidden within. The powerful might, which instilled fear in everyone, emanated from within it. There might be an emperor-level corpse hidden within the pile. Perhaps, the corpse was similar to the body of Shunjia the Great. The black turtle continued to let out sorrowful wails, affecting the cultivators. Right at this moment, a faint aura could be sensed from the tower-shaped grave. The faint light brightened slightly. Then, under the shocking gazes of all the cultivators, the rest of the corpses glowed and started moving. Some of the corpses floated in midair. At this moment, the cultivators who stood on the black turtle felt that they were being watched. It was a peculiar sensation. Before their eyes were indeed lifeless corpses. However, the corpses now gave off a vibe as though they were alive. The situation of the corpses was similar to that of the black turtle. It was undoubtedly dead, but it could continue moving while carrying this ruin on its back. Buzz. The corpses suddenly charged towards the cultivators. All the corpses seemed to have come alive. The eyes of some corpses, which had been closed for a long time, suddenly opened and emitted creepy light. Be careful, Renhuang-chan warned the surrounding cultivators. The gazes of the cultivators from various forces turned serious. These corpses actually moved and pounced on them. Who was controlling them? Accompanying the sorrowful wail of the dragon turtle, the corpses lunged at the cultivators. More than 10 corpses pounced in the direction where Futian and his group were. The speed of the corpses was astonishing. They were practically crashing towards them. A cultivator from Ziwei Imperial Palace, who stood in front, punched the space in front of him. Instantly, starlight circulated and shot outwards. The corpses crashed head-on into the starlight. Loud rumbles thundered. A few corpses were shattered into pieces, but some corpses managed to force their way past the gigantic stars. The collision between the corpses and the stars caused the stars to crumble continuously. The corpses were so powerful. The giant-level figure was shocked. The corpses actually broke through his attack. If they were so powerful even as corpses, what level were these people at when they were still alive? Most likely, all the cultivators buried in this tower-shaped grave had not been simple beings. Old Ma and the rest also unleashed their divine light of the Great Path to withstand the incoming corpses. However, the corpses ignored all resistance and continued to press forward. They were lifeless and were not afraid of death, so they kept pushing forward. Many countermeasures set up by the cultivators were destroyed by the terrifying push from the corpses. Futian and his group were not the only ones being attacked. More and more corpses buried in the tower-shaped grave surged out and rushed towards different directions. The number of the attacking corpses was increasing. They were like an army of reapers. It was a frightening scene to behold. Buzz. Starlight screens appeared all around, with Futian and his group as the center. Renhuang-chan raised his scepter. The surrounding space became his absolute domain. More and more cracks appeared on the tower-shaped grave, and more corpses joined in the attack against the cultivators. However, all of them were blocked outside the screens. None of them could break through Renhuang-chan's defense. Even so, the corpses still slammed themselves relentlessly on the screens, causing the screens to vibrate. At this moment, the sorrowful wail of the black turtle intensified. Futian looked ahead and saw that, from within the grave, beams of divine halo shone. The halos transformed into a unique rhythm. The rhythm was permeated with immense sadness. Boom! A loud thud sounded, and another corpse appeared. This corpse was not deformed. He was garbed in blue robes. His hair was actually still jet black in color, untainted by the passing of time. The rhythm surged out from the grave and permeated into the blue-robed corpse. Immediately, the corpse opened its eyes as though it had been awakened. His jet-black hair danced violently in the air. In different directions, a few other corpses that were at the same level as the blue-robed corpse appeared. The pressure emanated by these corpses was enough to make the giant-level figures from various forces feel threatened. Be careful. These corpses were existences that had survived divine tribulations of the Great Path when they were alive. A solemn voice rang, warning all the cultivators to beware of these newly awakened corpses. The capabilities of these corpses were unfathomable. A beam of blue light flashed, and the blue-robed corpse sprang in the direction where Futian and his group were. His speed was shocking. He extended his arms and sent out a palm strike against the starlight screens that materialized from Renhuang-chen's power of the Great Path. The starlight screens shook fiercely upon the impact. Then, cracks appeared on the screens. The facial expressions of Renhuang-chen and the rest changed. These corpses were insanely powerful. Since the city on the black turtle's back was in a dilapidated state, the black turtle had most likely wandered around in the void space for a very long time. However, after so many years, not only were the corpses still in good condition, Even the clothes that they were wearing also did not decay. Now, the corpses moved as though they had been resuscitated. The situation was too bizarre. Rumble. More and more cracks formed on the screens. Renhuang Chun raised his scepter and pointed it forward. With a loud bang, the starlight screens shattered into pieces. The screens were replaced with a gigantic starry divine sword, which charged straight towards the blue-robed corpse. The blue-robed corpse showed no intention of dodging the sword. He actually used his bare hand to grab the sword. The momentum of the divine sword caused the corpse to be pushed backward. However, at the same time, the divine sword was also disintegrating bit by bit. Futian stood motionlessly at his spot. He was carefully listening. There was a rhythm playing. He heard a rhythmic sound coming out from the grave, affecting the corpses. It seemed like the corpses were awakened and gained their fighting spirit from the rhythm. Futian listened to the rhythm attentively. It was a vehemently sorrowful rhythm. The wail of the dragon turtle echoed the rhythm. As Futian listened, an intense grief welled up inside of him as well. It was as though he had no control over his feelings. Who is playing this rhythm? Futian wondered as he stared at the grave ahead. What exactly was hidden inside the grave? I need to make a trip. Uncle Ma, please keep me company, Futian said out loud all of a sudden. Old Ma looked at him and nodded. A dazzling light shone on Futian. Then, he actually entered into a dark fissure formed from the space tearing. Old Ma followed closely behind him. Futian wanted to make a trip to the Divine Prefecture. He wanted to return to the village and bring the body of Shunjia the Great to this ruin. Chapter 2295, The Way Home. After Futian and Old Ma left, the other cultivators remained to hold off the attacks of the ancient corpses of the Great Path. These corpses, which could attack on their own accord, seemed to have minds of their own. Their combat ability was also astonishing. It was as though they were real cultivators who had experienced the divine tribulations of the Great Path. Renhuang Chun from Ziwei Imperial Palace and the top figures from various forces could not do anything to ward off these ancient corpses. After all, the corpses were already dead, and they were unaffected by the cultivators' attacks. On the other hand, the cultivators' lives were in danger as soon as they received a blow from these powerful corpses. Moreover, the rhythm coming from the grave intensified as time passed. This caused the ancient corpses to attack even more violently. In the end, all the cultivators were forced to retreat. After the cultivators got off the back of the dragon turtle, the ancient corpses ceased their pursuit. Then, the corpses returned to the grave, and the rhythm also dissipated. Everything on the dragon turtle's back gradually returned to normal. It was as though nothing had happened. The cultivators stood in the void space around the dragon turtle. The terrifying storms blasted out from the fissures. The cultivators were enveloped by the divine light of the Great Path so that they could resist the churning storms. At the same time, they traveled in space and followed the dragon turtle closely. The cultivators and the dragon turtle advanced at the same speed in the same direction. What should we do? Asked a cultivator from a top force in the dark world. The people around him looked at each other in search of answers. Some of them fixed their gazes on the ancient city on top of the dragon turtle's back. A light was still faintly twinkling amidst the dilapidated grave. A top figure analyzed the situation and said, "The power that controls the ancient corpses comes from within the grave. Moreover, the might is at the level of a great emperor. Since there is an emperor's might and it can direct the rhythm, we can more or less be certain that there is a will of the great emperor lingering in this ruin. The will of the great emperor has kept the dragon turtle moving in the void for all these years. It can also utilize the rhythm to activate the ancient corpses." The rest of the cultivators nodded in agreement when they heard his words. We have to assemble a bigger team of cultivators. All of them felt that the current situation was tricky. Many top forces from the Divine Prefecture, the Dark World, and the empty Divine Realm were here. Yet, with their collective effort, they still couldn't seize control of this dragon turtle, which carried an ancient ruin on its back. Since they couldn't explore the ruin by themselves, they could only request stronger backup. Frightening rumbles thundered. The dragon turtle continued to advance in a specific direction. It traveled across space and left behind terrifying cracks. The storms churned continually. All the cultivators from various forces were eager to try their luck. Some of them made their second attempt to explore the ruin. However, they were encircled, attacked by the ancient corpses, and forced to retreat. Therefore, a bizarre scene took place in the void space. The dragon turtle, which was carrying a ruined city, or more precisely a grave, on its back, advanced in space. It caused a huge commotion as it moved. Many cultivators from various top forces, including quite a few giant-level figures, followed behind it. The scene was shocking. This scene continued for a period of time. The dragon turtle carrying the ruined city slowly approached the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. It was about to enter the region where the 3,000 realms of the Great Path were. Fortunately, the 3,000 realms of the Great Path were widely dispersed. There was a large distance between each realm. The area of the void space in between realms was far larger than the cumulative area of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Therefore, this grievous dragon turtle might not necessarily collide with the realms. If, unfortunately, a collision between the dragon turtle and a realm really occurred, the realm would most likely be penetrated by the terrifying momentum of this beast. Lord Taishian and the rest could only pray in their hearts as they observed the movement of the dragon turtle. They were not capable enough to stop it from advancing. On the other side, Futian and Old Ma managed to return to the Divine Prefecture with the help of the divine item given to Futian by Princess Donghuang. However, they landed in the Donghua domain. They traversed space and moved towards the Shangqing domain. Their destination was Four Corner Village. Old Ma naturally understood why Futian wanted to come back. After experiencing the terror of the ancient corpses on the dragon turtle's back, both of them understood that the cultivators from various forces would most likely be helpless. Under such circumstances, Futian couldn't be involved in the fight. With his abilities, he was not even qualified to participate in the battle. Hence, he had to make a trip to the village and retrieve the sacred remains of Shunjia, the great emperor. Only then did Futian stand a chance to fight against the other parties for the treasures in the ruin. Old Ma was proficient in the power of space. Hence, their speed was fast. They rushed to the Shangqing domain from the Donghua domain. Then, they arrived at the Four Corner continent. The return of Futian and Old Ma stirred up quite a commotion in Four Corner Village. Little Ling, Fang Xiyuan, and the other two youngsters gathered around them. However, Futian couldn't afford to waste much time here. He went straight to the private school in search of the master. In the private school, Master was meditating with his eyes closed. Futian approached him and bowed slightly. He greeted, "Master, are you here to retrieve the sacred remains?" Master asked Futian as he opened his eyes. He seemed to know Futian's intention for coming here. "Yes." Futian nodded. "Did something occur in the original realm?" Master inquired. Since Futian came from the original realm to retrieve the corpse of Shunjia, the great emperor, it was obvious that something had happened there and that Futian required the power of the sacred remains. Futian described the situation to Master, saying, "In a void space of the original realm, a dragon turtle appears. It carries a ruined city on its back. There is a grave in the city which contains many ancient corpses of the Great Path. A rhythm is played from within the grave, and it can control the ancient corpses. It is menacing. The combat ability of the ancient corpses is also very shocking. A dragon turtle carrying a ruined city, and a grave at that," Master mumbled. "It is searching for its way home. Unfortunately, the way home is too far. It will most likely never be able to make it back." "Does Master know what's going on?" Futian revealed a strange expression. It was looking for its way home? The battle which led to the collapse of the heavenly path in the past was also known as the end of the gods. Countless top cultivators perished, and many gods fell. Even great Emperor Ziwei had to rely on sealing his will in the segment to preserve it. The longer Futian came in contact with Master, the more he felt that Master was mysterious. Master was most likely a figure from the ancient past. Perhaps, he knew what happened in the past and the secrets of the dragon turtle and the grave. "I know," admitted Master while nodding his head. "Go and see for yourself." As Master said this, a body appeared beside Futian. It was the body of Shunjia, the great emperor. The divine light of the great path circled around the body, and it emanated an unfathomable aura. It was akin to a real deity. Futian looked at it. Then, he moved towards it, and streaks of divine light flowed from Futian into the body of Shunjia, the great emperor. The two divine lights formed some resonance, and Futian pocketed the corpse of Shunjia, the great emperor. Go. I will give you a ride so that you don't have to travel all the way back again, Master instructed. After that, a gentle force enveloped Futian and Old Ma. They were hurled outwards. It seemed like Master wanted to send them back to the original realm. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.